What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Season Gaming Bitcast, episode 343. Another fine Sunday in front of us. A lot of games to talk about and some good topics we've been waiting to talk about, as Travis says, for a little while now that he can finally talk about. So we're excited about this one. Of course, we've got Marathon and Bungie and the continued evolution of that thing taking shape. Yeah, maybe. We've got a fantastic Nintendo Direct on my most anticipated game, which I'm excited about. We got Borderlands 4 previews, including actual information from Mr. Tie Guy here, he's been keeping this information from me. We're going to discuss it. But anyway, the Tie Guy, the Lawman, they're both here with me. Lawman, how we doing this morning, my friend?
Oh, I'm doing good. I know I've brought it up before, but I always find it amusing when you editorialize a little bit on the rundown of what the show's going to be. Like, that DK Direct is fantastic. We will have no other thoughts on that. But I know that you had gotten the comment from me when that Direct happened, so you already know I'm in favor of what they put out there. But it's possible someone could look at that Direct and say, I am not interested in Bonanza. So
it's possible,
I'm looking forward to that
they'd
conversation.
Be weird. That would be a weird.
It's a monkey in a necktie. What's not to like?
Yeah, of course. Yes, I'm looking forward to it as well. We'll get into it, obviously. And the Tie Guy himself is back. He's ready to actually talk this week. How are we doing?
Speaking of monkeys and neckties.
Speaking of monkeys and neckties, it's me. It's that boy. What kind of monkey would I be if I were a monkey? You know, I'm definitely not a silverback gorilla. That's more Ains style.
I guess that's a lore dump, but I don't know what to do with this topic.
Yeah, what kind of monkey would you be? That's a great question. What are the
you
kinds
just called me a silverback gorilla? I think I got to take it and just.
Yeah, I mean that's the W right there. You're welcome. Hogue, I see you as those really furry red ones. You know, orangutan. You're an orangutan. I see you as an orangutan.
Furry red one.
Is that okay? And I'm probably something, a little more small and nimble, but probably screams a lot. You know,
I think I want to be like
guys.
I think I want to be like Rafiki in The Lion King. Is that a monkey?
Rafiki?
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a monkey. Okay,
I think that's kind of where Travis is going, isn't it?
Unless I think that. Well, no, orangutans are bigger.
Oh, okay.
You could sing in the Jungle Book. I've never seen that movie, but I know he sings in it.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, Travis, you nailed this one because we're gonna skip the normal order here and go straight to Tide's picks because she hit us.
No way! Oh my god, dude, I crushed it. Dude, I look like if Donkey Kong got a college degree. Like
you do. You look like the lawyer. You look like the lawyer of the group.
He usually does.
Why am I wearing a lei though? That's a little interesting.
Why not?
Yeah.
Celebrate some, Travis.
I'm not super happy to be at a luau though. I'm pretty sad.
What I love is that the AI has captured Travis's innate disdain for what's going on around him.
Yeah.
Wait, if you look closely, you have like a suit jacket on that's fur, but then the flaps are like
it's a lapel. My lapel is like decorated, which those are fun. This is clearly actually I think that's a tuxedo's lapel based on how far it goes up. Which is
I like to think that the Tides pick conversation gets the audio listeners to say, "I got to check out that video. What in the heck are they even reacting to?"
Sorry, audio listeners. This is one you're gonna want to pull up for sure.
I gotta say, I think my mouth. We've all got snouts here. I think mine is the only proportionate one. Hogue's is insanely too big. I mean, that is
I have a big mouth.
The AI really thinks you got a big mouth, dude, because it looks like they took a photo of you and they just photoshopped a giant maw right over.
I was just gonna say, you, Travis, at least look properly formed. Me and Hogue, it looks like us with just giant mouths put on us.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ains, it looks like you're talking with like a magnifying glass in front of the bottom of your face. When people do that to make their faces look weird. That's what it looks like to you.
Got the headphones though. That's what matters.
Yeah, you got the headphones.
Mr. Babette says, "What the F did I walk in on?"
There you go. We're all just trying to get our nanners. That's what we're trying to do.
That's it. That's all it's about. But
Ains, they didn't even Photoshop his arms. That's just what this is just
it.
Real,
that's
it. What you look like after Banandium.
Yeah, that's folks. It. Yeah,
it's good.
Tide, amazing picks this week. Thank you very much. It was appropriate for the lore dump that Travis was hitting us with right out of the gate.
Which monkey are you is a ridiculous lore dump. Yeah, I can't wait till we run out of like real lore to give and we just start saying the dumbest shit. That's my goal.
You can't wait till that starts.
Yeah. What did we do last week?
anticipating
Was
that,
it
huh?
serious? Which monkey are you?
I don't know. You're the lore dump guy. You're supposed to be on this. Come on.
Yeah. Hey,
Yeah,
dude,
we're not keeping lore Bibles. We don't know.
All right, it's fine.
Before we get into that, we do have one super chat from an oldie Wan Kenobi, a very simple one here to start us
That's
off.
awesome. Why is that like an AI of Obi-Wan? Yeah, no, they photoshopped the Obi-Wan from the prequels. It's Ewan McGregor, but he's old. There's already an old one. You could have just done Alec Guinness. All right. Anyway, oldie Wan Kenobi offers a €2 super chat and writes, "Hello there," which we always appreciate.
I was
Hello
wondering
there.
if Travis would do the accent.
Of course. The question is, do you say Alec Guinness hello there from A New Hope or Ewan McGregor hello there from Revenge of the Sith? That's the real question.
They're similar.
They are pretty similar. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me go ahead and hide that. Thank you very much, whoever you are, Mr. Kenobi. Appreciate you. But yeah, we're going to get into a bunch of games here. We've got a bunch of everything to talk about. So FBC Firebreak has released, Rematch has released, Date Everything has released, Lost in Random, The Eternal Die. I'm sure you guys have a few other things to talk about. And then, of course, we'll get into our main topics. But why don't we go ahead and start with what we're playing? So you guys, I'm going to kick this to you right away because in our chat, we were talking about Date Everything. You guys have mentioned it for previous times, a bunch of times. Not sounding as good as maybe was anticipated.
Well, I don't know if anybody anticipated anything about it, and I don't want to jump on Travis. Travis is our dating expert, but I wasn't expecting too much from this. This is a first-time project from a new studio. I didn't realize the history here was that it was essentially voice actors that started a game development studio, and Date Everything feels like a project that is designed to showcase voice acting more than anything else. And you can feel that really from the first instance that you play it. There's nothing wrong with that. The voice acting for the most part is tremendous. But voice acting alone, I think Date Everything is the definitive proof, does not make a video game.
Yeah, so I think there was a little bit of hype for this game because dating sims are famously super low budget. Like there's no major studios that make dating sims, unfortunately. And so if you're a dating sim fan, you play like a lot of like fan-made games or single-person games, or you kind of take what you can get basically in the genre. And so Date Everything was cool because it has a pretty kick-ass premise, which is you get magic glasses that let you look at any item in your household. They turn into a cute boy, and then you can date them. That's pretty cool, right?
Cute girl. Yeah.
Or a cute girl, but yeah, I
Your
use the
definition
phrase.
of cool is way different than mine.
Well, you know what? You need to expand your horizons, my dude. You got to play more. You got to play. Look, you never played a dating sim except for Romancylvania.
Yep.
Yeah, and that was a super low budget one, which
was a good time.
It was a good time. Yeah. It's a cool idea for a game, and then if you combine the fact that it's got all these well-known voice actors, which again, the vast majority of dating sims do not have any voice acting or very, very little voice acting. And so that's another, even the really good ones like Monster Prom, basically no voice acting. Like it's just super limited.
You know, the vocal, like reminding you of what the person sounds like.
Exactly. Sounds. It kind of gives you like little sound bites. So there's that. And then also the fact that it was published by a major publisher, Team 17. It's got all these like things about it where you're like, okay, there's like a lot of hope here. And then you see that there's 100 dateable characters, which is also a ludicrous number of characters for dating sims, where typically you have like maybe 4 to 6 options, somewhere around that. And so there was a pretty significant amount of hype for this game in the dating sim community. I would say there still is. The Discord's very active. People like my wife D has been obsessed with this game ever since it came out. The problem with the game really is that its eyes were a little bit bigger than its stomach in terms of scope and what they could actually accomplish given their team size and budget. And so it's got bugs, and some of the bugs are really bad. For example, Well, you go to the main menu, the data decks, where you scroll through all the people, and it gives like this horrific menu noise,
What is
error
that
noise.
sound effect? My God.
It's them scrolling through the data decks way fast, but you can't turn it off. It's insane. So that's been there since day one. Everybody's annoyed by that. But then there's some serious, like, real problems, like the fact that your save files will start getting corrupted at the 30 to 40 hour mark, which that you can see all over the Discord. My wife was, of course, one of these people hit with this problem because she probably logged 40 hours in the first 2 days because she's a psychopath. And she got hit with this problem where she basically can't play the game anymore because none of her saves will load. She gets into like an infinite loading screen, and then if she does load her autosave, the only save that will load, she loses like 10 hours of progress and all this stuff. So unfortunately, she got to like 99 out of the 100 data bowls, and she has sworn off video games until I fix this because she's so pissed. Seriously, I've tried to get her to play other games, and she's like, "Nah, I'm done with games until they fix my dating game." So she's pretty upset. And I would say that is really the biggest problem, because until then, until the tech problems really started to rear their ugly head, this was one of her favorite dating sims. The writing, I think, is quite good. The voice acting, as Hogue said, is the best I think the genre has seen. The concept is really
voice acting.
Yeah, the concept is really interesting, and she was getting into the late game where you start to do some really cool stuff that I won't spoil, but like I watched a lot of this game, and so since it's a dating sim with no actual gameplay, I feel pretty qualified to talk about it pretty definitively, having seen a ton of it. And I think it if they fix the bugs and some of the game breaking issues, I think it'll be a very beloved game by a small but passionate community that is people that play dating sims, myself included. I was supposed to review this game, ended up not having bandwidth at IGN to do so with the Switch 2 coming out and my review of Dune Awakening, which ended up taking almost 200 hours, et cetera, et cetera. So we're not reviewing this game, but I wish I was, because I feel like the genre doesn't get enough coverage.
So I don't want to just slam this game. I think one of the things that attracted me to this premise after Travis introduced me to it is the coolness of seeing how these artists kind of interpret what a dating sim character would look like if they were a shelf or an air conditioner or a window, and what the personalities would be of those people. And so I do think that this game is tremendous. Whoever the artist is that was like concepting out, what does your phone look like if it were a young woman, is really, really smart. And it's continually rewarding to go and say, well, I haven't talked to my piano yet. I wonder what they did with her or him. And that really keeps the game going. I don't think as a game itself, it's a good dating sim. Basically, all of these dateable characters have 3 kind of outcomes, and you're trying to get them to one of any of them in order to get stat points, in order to have specific discussion items with other dateables. But that really ends most of their plot lines. And so you don't have the traditional kind of dating sim tension of which direction to go, because it's set in a sandbox. And then when you succeed at making them a love interest, a friend, or an enemy, for the most part, you're done with them. You stop talking to them. And that's a weird kind of loop for a game like this. And I don't think they really hit the nail on the head for what you want out of this kind of experience. But I love the character designs. The voice acting is great. I do agree that this game would be better if they fix some of the bugs. I had other ones, Travis, where essentially things that you interact with, it's got a first-person, 3-dimensional interface, which is unusual for the genre as well. You walk around your house in finding objects, but you have to open doors and open drawers and things like that. And I had them not open until you reload and like everything's opened. It's like the strangest thing. Like, it's not the tightest piece of code. Like, you can feel like it's not a solid game, like, as it's operating, even though all the ideas are interesting. Mm-hmm. I have problems with it on a design basis, and I have problems with it on a bug basis, as Travis described. But if you're at all interested in this kind of content, I do think there's some real imagination and things that are interesting there. And if you want to hear Ben Starr act as a bouncer that is every doorway in your house, then there's no other place to get it. So I'm happy to have interesting things out there. I wish this one came off a little better.
Yeah.
I was joking of Lore Dump. What household item or appliance would you be?
Oh yeah. So I am actually IRL like an archetype for that's often used in dating sims, which is there's always like a emotionalist guy in a suit who sometimes is like, and D likes that route a lot in games. Go
You would
figure.
hope.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I mean,
So she's always looking for like the old Japanese businessman who he doesn't have time for romance, and she's like, that's the one. And I'm like, dude, what's wrong with you?
Oh, she's an
so,
I'll change him type. Okay.
yeah, exactly. She likes the I'll change him, I'll awaken something inside him. And so I
could you tell her to
think,
hurry up with you, please?
yeah, I mean, she's still trying to crack that egg. I think I would probably be something you use for work, like maybe your computer in your office or something, something like that. And my route would be that you use me to talk to the other datables, but I'm not somebody you can date, at least initially. I would be what's called in the dating sim community a hidden route.
Fair enough.
Sorry guys, I know a lot about dating sims.
Travis, the hidden route.
Hidden route. Ains, what would you be?
I don't have a clue.
You could be a wall.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Foundational,
one of my favorite early characters in Date Everything is the table, and it's basically his entire personality is he's stable and he keeps everything up in the house. So yeah,
you'd be a table.
Probably in terms of how Date Everything thinks about these things. Yeah. One of the interesting things about this game is that they went to a kind of strange level of establishing how the lore of the game works. In case you're wondering how you can talk to this same table in different places, they have this entire concept that basically every object in the world, once it's made into that object, is that personality. Like it's the platonic ideal of the object in every instance that you could possibly meet them in. So, like the concepts that they have in their personalities are that table holds things up, so does the shelf. The diary is a little crazy because diaries are crazy. There's all these things that are interesting about this game. It's one of the reasons why I would recommend it if it were a little bit better of an experience. But I think for me, yeah, I'd try to be that stable force in somebody's life, the table.
Nice.
Okay. We got a couple comments relating to this. So Squirrel says Kitty Powers Matchmaker is pretty good for dating sim. Doesn't lose save files.
Nice.
I don't know that one, obviously. I don't know any of these, but
well, interestingly enough, like this genre is big enough that I don't think even aficionados know everything in every corner of the genre.
That's correct. Like they're sort of like dime store novels. Like the vast majority of them are shared through like, have you heard of this one? It's, you got to play it on itch.io and stuff like that. Like it's like very niche and indie. This is indie among indies, this whole entire genre.
So, yeah, and Date Everything could be a good kind of gateway to people that are interested in this kind of gameplay experience, but it has to get a little better.
Yeah, it really does.
Christy, shout out to Christy Fletcher, one of our regulars here, says, but did Hogue date the board games? Voiced by Brennan Lee Mulligan.
I don't think I've talked to the board games yet. I did not play it as much as D did. I was really, really put off by the sound effects in the data decks.
Yeah, the bugs can turn you off pretty quick. I will say, Hogue, one of your complaints about the shallowness of moving on is sort of resolved. Again, I don't want to spoil it, but I think if you'd played a little bit more, you would reach a point where there's a little bit more depth and extra stuff to do with some of the characters you've reached the end of route with. But again, it's kind of hard to get to that point in the game and enjoy that stuff, even for people like my wife, when the game has these sorts of bugs that are just like pretty unacceptable. It also kind of makes me a little happy I didn't end up reviewing this one because I have a feeling it would have been a kind of a bad review. Yeah, I'm glad I don't have to do that to this genre
I think that's now. The comment I gave you was like, Travis, you didn't want this one. It would not have been as high as you would like it to be.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been that positive a review, possibly even a negative review. And you hate to see that. Feels like a little bit like bullying with a genre like this one, where there's not a ton of examples of games I could even justifiably rate all that high.
And for those of you complaining in the chat, I do think Date Everything was probably one of the bigger releases this week. It was not a AAA release week. A lot of good indie games, a lot of things to talk about, but Date Everything was a big one. If you look at your Steam menu right now, you'll see it towards the top of the games that released this week. So Thank you for your comments, chat. We are going to talk about the dating sim occasionally when it's as big a launch as this one.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd be curious how big our audience is of the listeners on the dating sims, but we do talk about them here. I will talk about a game. I'm assuming that I know I've played it more than you guys, but I don't think you've maybe played it at all. Is Rematch, which is developer Slow Clap, which did Sifu and Absolver. So this game has been in beta a couple times. It released this week on Tuesday in early access, released, I think, Thursday night in Game Pass and for purchase. It is a competitive, fast-paced football or soccer game, right?
It's Rocket League with people. You can get to the core here.
Rocket League with people.
I know. It's really weird. That's what I was going to say. Or joke is like,
soccer.
Yeah, Rocket League is like soccer with cars, and then this is just the opposite, right? Going back to its core.
Yes, but it establishes what it is. It's that fast-paced indoor.
So does just saying it's soccer.
No, it doesn't, because it's soccer sounds like FIFA or Winning 11 or anything else. Rematch is Rocket League, but it's with people.
Yeah, well, and it's only 3-on-3, 4-on-4, 5-on-5. There's invisible walls, so the ball can never go out of bounds. It's very fast paced, and competitive. It's made to be a competitive game like Rocket League, essentially. So I played in the betas. I had fun, but it was very light. It is now released. I've played way too much of this, way too late the past few nights with friends. It is very, very addicting. It has something about it, the usual, right, where just the feeling of actually doing something right, which is harder than it seems because there's a lot of things you can do, but kicking off the wall and making a perfect pass or just scoring a good goal or making a good save is very satisfying in this game. They've nailed that aspect of it. The problems, however, is that, one, they didn't get crossplay done in time for launch. It's their first online multiplayer game. And as we've seen many, many times in this industry, small developers underestimate multiplayer games and kind of the nuances of those things. And so that's where a lot of the issues reside. There's no crossplay. Latency in the game is pretty poor. So the server connectivity is not great. It obviously, when you're playing the ranked matches, the really competitive ones are 5-on-5. And so when you're playing a 5-on-5 soccer game with not complex controls, but detailed controls, I would say, when you have like the ball skipping around or players skipping around, or you think you have the ball and then suddenly you don't, that's a problem, right?
I would hate that.
I have a clip from last night playing goalie. I love playing goalie, and I dove across, and on my screen, the ball's in my hands. And then suddenly my guy's standing up and they had scored. And I'm like, yeah, that's not good. And that happens regularly. So,
and it's only multiplayer, right? There's no single player component to this.
Only multiplayer. Yep. It is purely made to be a competitive game. So the art style is cool. The feeling of playing it is cool. When you play with friends, it's an absolute blast. It's on Game Pass, so you can check it out if you're a Game Pass member. But it is, it definitely needs some work. So they acknowledged that, I want to say, yesterday or day before. Obviously, they're aware of these things. Their priorities are bug fixes and the server connectivity and getting crossplay live. So once they do that and kind of flesh this out a little bit, I think they're going to have a real big hit on their hands. It's seeing really high concurrent players already on Steam.
It does the thing you need to do to go viral, which is the clips are awesome. Every time I see a clip, I'm like, I should turn that game on.
Yeah, it's when you do something right in it, just like Rocket League, right? When you make a cool play in Rocket League, it's very, very addicting. And so you play a match and you're like, damn, that didn't go well. Let's play one more. And then you play, and then, every once in a while you do that cool thing and you're like, man, that was fun. Let's play one more. It's got that let's play one more way too strong right now, even despite the issues, which I think says a lot about how good the core of the game is.
Yeah. Because as you describe it for a multiplayer game, it makes me want to throw up. Like, I don't want any piece of that for a fast-paced competitive game. But it still looks awesome every time I see it, so I'm probably going to turn it on after this show.
Yeah, at least try. And you can like, they have tutorials, a little short prologue, right? That tells you how to practice and make certain passes and stuff. And it's just really good. But I hope they fix it up soon. The content side is pretty light. They did that thing where they launch with a battle pass and some cosmetics, but it's season 0, right? And so from an arena and celebration and all those little things you would have in a game like this to customize, it's pretty light as well. I really think they would have been better off keeping this in the oven for another 3 to 6 months. But, you know, funding, publishers, development
sometimes
costs,
you need the money.
Yeah, all that stuff. So I think they probably found a good balance. They've shown they can develop it, a multiplayer game well, and I think it will succeed long term. It's just, but it's really good. It's really good. So wanted to touch on that one.
I will give it a try. I'm interested. I keep forgetting that it's out, which is not a great sign, but I'm also not the exact target audience for this.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can play casual 3-3, 4-4, or 5-5. I would recommend doing 5-5 because less of the focus is on you at that point. You know what I mean? When you're warming up. 3-on-3 is really tough because obviously someone's playing goalie, right? So you only have 2 people on the whole field. So there's a lot of coordination that's required there. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. So did either of you play Lost in Random: The Eternal Die? That came out.
After being corrected by you that it wasn't a DLC for Lost in Random, which was a game I liked, I looked at the trailers for this, and it looked like they were making some kind of Hades-esque offshoot of Lost in Random, which didn't exactly interest me, so I haven't popped in yet. Is it any good?
Okay. I've only played it briefly. I can't speak super intelligently to it. I've got maybe 30 minutes in it. I will say it is very pretty. It's got that isometric kind of overhead, you know, same type of thing as Hades, like you called out. What I like so far is they set it up in the story, continuing from Lost in Random, which is pretty cool.
Which is a really good game.
Yeah,
check it out, folks.
And then they basically, you know, you've got all everything that's kind of a nuance like Hades of your skills, your abilities, the things you pick up along the way, your powers, all that is all in line as you would expect in that theme. And so there's a lot of like randomization chances, and you can throw your die out, and he's kind of like a partner. Your little die has feet, you can throw him out and he kind of helps you attack. And it's very smooth. It plays very well. So I saw reviews were really strong of this, or I think it's in the mid to high 80s, which is great. I'm gonna play it more this week, but I just at least wanted to mention that it's out. It's another one that's in Game Pass. Someone can correct me. I don't know if it's also in Game Catalog on the PlayStation side. I'm not sure. But yeah, it's quite good, and it seems to be well received. So check it out. Damn, Ty. Okay. Hit us as you're typing here. Hit us with something you've been playing, Travis.
Yeah. What have I been playing? Oh, I can talk about Dune Awakening. We talked about that last week, but
we did.
My review is done. I played so much of this game, guys, including tons of the end game, so you can see my review there if you want. But I also made a guide for how you can unlock all the character classes and skill trees for Dune Awakening, which was fun. What else did I do this week? Oh, we could talk about Borderlands later. I assume that's later is that a main topic? Yeah, okay, main topic. We'll talk about.
I love
that
it
later.
when you show how much you've read of the rundown. I like that, Travis.
Look, I scroll. I get a few minutes. I get like 3 minutes before
It is very early for you, yes.
Yeah, so I can talk about the stuff I played. I'm playing Tears of the Kingdom, a game I only played about 10 hours of on the Switch 1. Not because it was particularly bad on the Switch 1. I think the Switch 1's, the fact that it can run it at all is pretty crazy because optimization on the Zelda games for the Switch 1 is crazy. But on Switch 2, it looks and performs a lot better, and I don't have a ton of excuses to use my Switch 2 right now, especially since Dee's using it to play dating sims quite frequently. So hopping on Tears of the Kingdom has been awesome. I'm determined to finish this game on the Switch 2 because it's a pretty big one that I never finished.
Yeah, it's large. Don't commit to that before you can.
I think I can get through it. Speaking of games that took way too long for me to get through, I have beaten Kazan First Berserker.
Hey,
Nice.
Congratulations.
Did it.
Yeah,
I'm still in the demo.
Did you know that Hogue beat the Yeti?
I did beat the Yeti. Just
a
reminder, everybody, I got past the Yeti in Kazan.
But he got to the Phantom, which I'm pretty interested in. So not only did I beat this game, I also accidentally got every achievement in it, which is pretty funny. I was just going for like kind of a completionist run, like, oh, I'll do all the missions, I'll find all the stuff,
Yeah.
and then all the achievements popped at the end, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. Got that done. So that was
Nice.
really cool. And then I've had no reviews / previews to work on for exactly 2 days, and I've basically used every minute of that time to catch up on my backlog. So D and I are nearing the end of Split Fiction. I started South of Midnight, which is a game I hadn't even booted up since I did the preview like a year ago or more. And I'm finishing the Miles Edgeworth Investigations game. And then the rest of my backlog includes like Kingdom Come Deliverance, which I've got to finish.
Ooh.
It includes Elden Ring Night Rain, which I barely touched. It includes it's pretty extensive, honestly, guys. But I think I can get through it all. I just gotta, use all my. I don't know when my next review is because I was supposed to be working on Date Everything right now. So I guess we'll see. But yeah,
Do you? We're going to talk about Borderlands here shortly with your previews. Are you going to be reviewing that one? Do you know yet?
I think so. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, pretty sure.
I hope so. That'd be cool because I hope to review it as well.
So the story behind that is that I was originally not going to be on Borderlands 4 because it came out the exact same day as Marathon, which they needed me to review.
Right.
But Marathon's out of the way, so let's go Borderlands. Yeah, I think I'm probably the guy for that. I've done a lot of the DLC for Borderlands 3, and then I did the Tiny Tina's Wonderlands as well. So I'm assuming I'm probably
I love Wonderlands, man. It's a great game.
Yeah, underrated game, I think. So I think I'm probably the Borderlands 4 guy, especially since I've played it pretty extensively already.
Were you and sorry to interrupt, we're going back real quick. What did you and D think of Split Fiction in the end?
So we haven't finished it yet, but we really adore this game. It's super fun. I love how like with all the games with the studio so far, like you kind of never know what you're going to be doing in the next hour of gameplay, which is just very very hilarious. Yeah, it's good. I'm excited to see how it ends. Beautiful game, nice and short, which is cool. I mean, I don't know how long it is, but I think we've only been playing for like 4 hours, and I'm starting to feel like it's getting wrapped up. So feels like it's kind of a shorter game, which is cool.
I think the runtime I had with my daughter was 15 or so. So I'm not positive you're at the end.
Interesting. Okay. Or
someone Scott B says, I restarted Tears on the Switch 2 and it's gorgeous. I've heard really positive things of the Switch 2 upgrade version.
They look fantastic.
Yeah.
Awesome. Good.
Yeah. The Switch 2 upgrades are fantastic. Even the free upgrades are pretty much fantastic. I've been playing Pokemon Scarlet, and it looks night and day different from how it looked on the Switch 1, which is good because it didn't look great on Switch 1.
I think it really is like for the games that actively looked bad, they look like passable, but I still am not super impressed with the games that don't have explicit upgrades. Like there is a pretty big difference between what you get when you pay the $10 or whatever it is for Tears of the Kingdom versus like boot up it's basically running the exact Switch 1 version, and sometimes you get like passive performance upgrades just based on the hardware being better, but I really wish they would.
So there's 3 categories, Travis, and I agree with you on some of the stuff that just gets the loading boost. It still looks like it's on Switch 1, but the free upgrades that Nintendo's doing on their own stuff, even without the $10, because it seems like they're only charging for expansion content. On the Zelda side, they kind of cheated a little bit because they just added like crap in the mobile app. But for the most part, they're charging for these things that have like the Jamboree TV content or the Kirby extra expansion and things like that. The ones they gave free, like Pokemon Scarlet and most recently Splatoon 3, night and day, like fantastic looking on the Switch 2. And those aren't charged for, but they are specifically noted as having gotten upgrades, having gotten resolution and frame rate upgrades on both those games. So I think that's different from random game that just plays better on the Switch 2 and looks like a Switch 1 title.
I tried to play Arceus, and that's a game that very clearly is not upgraded. At least for what I can tell, it still looks
pretty rough on the Switch 1.
It doesn't have those problems anymore on the Switch 2. Like the performance is there, but I think in terms of like making the game like shoot for higher because of the extra headroom, I don't think they do that. So there's stuff like that where I'm just waiting to see. And then I'm like really annoyed with the pace of upgrades. Like it's insane to me that with how small their launch lineup was, that I'm still waiting for the Jamboree upgrade for Mario Party. Like my boys want to play Mario Party on the 4th of July weekend, and I'm like, well, you have to play the Switch 1 version because it doesn't come out till like July 15 or something. It's crazy. So it's just weird to me.
Is it? I wasn't aware of this. Is it like additional content, or is it just kind of the upgrade of how it feels and plays?
I think
it's both. They
Jamboree
combined it.
Yeah, I think Jamboree is kind of extensive because they're making more mini games that use like the Switch 2's unique functionality, like the mouse mode is my assumption and stuff like that. So I think they're adding additional mini games. But like if you play it right now, you're just playing the original Switch 1 version, which feels a little
Yeah, for the record, Travis, Arceus is not on their list of upgrades. Scarlet and Violet are.
Yeah, so the Arceus is the one I tried because the only Pokemon games I have not finished are Arceus, Scarlet, and Violet. Ever.
You should hop into Scarlet and Violet because it looks much better on Switch 2.
Yeah. I want to do Arceus first.
Why? The rich lore of Pokemon? Go to Scarlet and Violet.
First of all, Arceus does have lore, all right? We found out that Pokemon want to be in balls. That's a pretty big...
I know Arceus has lore. I'm just saying it's not necessary to enjoy Scarlet and Violet.
Did you know they want to be in balls?
We found out that Pokemon want to be in balls.
I know that in Arceus the Pokemon are teammates, that they are partners in what you're trying to do.
A criticism I've had of the Pokemon universe forever is that their level of technology makes no sense because they ride bicycles everywhere. They don't have like flying cars or advanced technology, but they can turn an Onix into weightless matter, just pure energy, and store it in a Pokeball that you can carry on your hip.
This is what happens when a society focuses on a specific technological avenue. They were really interested in controlling those Pokemon.
If they had the ability to turn a Pokemon into weightless energy, they would have, teleportation, faster than light travel, like all this other stuff. It doesn't make any sense. But in Arceus, we find out that they actually did not invent the ability for Pokemon to turn into weightless energy. Pokemon just organically want to turn into weightless energy and go into a ball because you can craft a ball out of wood. There's no tech to it. And if you throw it at a Pokemon, the Pokemon goes, I guess I'll be energy now, which is insane. And that's like actual world building. It destroys my criticisms of the Pokemon universe. So good for them.
There you go. Well, I recommend Scarlet now. That's the one I have. But I'm sure you're fine with Violet.
I do want to play it, but yeah, I'm bummed out that like it would have been easy to just make these games perform like they do on other consoles when you get like a pro or an upgrade. There's not like always a explicit upgrade, but they make the hardware run like just a better version, uncapped or whatever. And it seems like these are like locked and targeting the exact Switch 1 specs, which is super
for console games. That's what happens a lot of the time is they lock what works, what they can get to work on the platform. And you're right. The games that have unlocked concepts like Bayonetta 3 work better. They get that auto upgrade when you get the higher end hardware. But I don't really blame the folks that locked into something they thought could work. It certainly does improve even that experience with the load times and the performance upgrades just from the muscle of the Switch 2. So I've been playing indie games that were just absolute garbage on the Switch 1, like Caravan Sandwich and some other things that definitely function better on the Switch 2. You don't get that, so pretty that you get from Tears of the Kingdom or some of the other stuff that you can get on the system. But it definitely upgrades the experience really across the board. I feel like my library has been unlocked with the Switch 2.
Most importantly, with this revelation that Travis has stumbled upon in Pokemon, best comment of the day, sounds like they want to live in the world of bang on balls. So every time we get a bang on balls mentioned, we got to call it out. You know what I mean?
For sure.
No, you don't know. You don't know what I mean. Okay.
I don't know what you mean. We never have known what you mean, Ains. But we're happy that you found something that you like so much.
That's really the biggest surprise is that Ains really likes that game because I was like,
fun,
he's got Bang on Balls and Biomutant just on the shelf next to him.
Right.
It's the two games he plays every night.
There's a physical for Bang on Balls.
No, they didn't bother to print any physical versions of Bang on Balls.
How is it on my shelf then? Their logic is falling apart in front of you, Hogue.
Yes, you're absolutely right. You caught me.
You know what did release this?
Shelf is my question.
You know what released this week, which I think all of us said we weren't really excited for. Hogue, I know you definitely weren't excited for this.
Oh, I tried it though. I know what's coming here. I tried it.
Yeah, it seemed to land. Our Discord, which you've been involved in, was talking about this one, and the opinions have not been very positive, which is FBC Firebreak. So Remedy's multiplayer control universe game. We saw it at Summer Game Fest. They had booths for it. People were playing it. I mean, walking by, it looked okay, but the feedback on our Discord, at least, is not very strong on this one.
I know Travis is always all about let the devs do what they're passionate about, what they want to do. But I do think at some point, project management, the directors of the studio, whatever, can look at a team and say, you know what? You're really good at lore and world building and storytelling and all this various other things that Remedy is good at. Maybe a loreless multiplayer wave-based thing is not the best use of our resources or time. Now, I do think this is them trying to get their toes in a little bit as to understanding the live service side of the world, as well as getting their toes in with the contract negotiation process with Sony and Xbox and figuring out how their subscription services work and where they might find some revenue and resources. Remedy is, of course, one of the bigger, more successful independent developers out there now. So they're trying to figure out this contract landscape as much as anybody else. But Firebreak has almost no onboarding. It's loud and you don't know what's going on. And then when you figure out what's going on, you realize that what's going on isn't fun. So pretty much a disaster in all regards for me.
Oof. I haven't played it, so I can't comment. Travis, you touched it at all?
I have not played it. I don't know if I will. I still will stand by, if this is something they're passionate about and they want to do, let them do it. And obviously, first attempts are always.
I don't want to throw them in jail or anything. I just think that this was
but you
not a great use of resources.
You want them to get back into the caves. Go back, go mine. Go back to the mines with you. And I say, first attempts are sometimes a little rocky. If they're passionate about this, stick to it. I have not seen universally bad. Like the main criticism, it seems to be online when I was looking at this, is that there's just not a lot there, which is not the worst problem in the world to have with the multiplayer game. You add more content, you can develop it over time. And also the developer has been pretty outspoken of the fact that there's a bunch of stuff that they want to fix and add on to this game, which is also a good sign. A lot of times you just get silence, which means the studio doesn't care about the game or has already moved on to the next thing or given up on it, which is pretty much the kiss of death with these multiplayer games. So
I got to be honest with you, Travis, it feels to me almost like an asset flip. It's got control assets all over the place, and you're just playing a thing that's a wave-based shooter that has objectives that you run around and do with almost no kind of reason or interactivity. So it doesn't have the lore of Control. It doesn't even have the lore of Alan Wake. It is as simplistic of a shooter concept as I can imagine working out for this. So it seems like a proof of concept that they can even make something like this, but I wouldn't describe this as a passion project.
Yeah, I mean, some people like games where there's not a lot of lore and it's just, multiplayer PvP.
There are a lot of game companies that make those.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think I don't know what the reasoning for here. All I know is that there was from what we can tell zero pressure for them to make a game like this, and they did it anyway. And it was their first go at it. So if they now they know what to do better for the next time, or they could work on this one and further develop it. And games can have a second life now, especially a game like this that I believe is on Game Pass and is just sort of going for like the accessibility play in terms of like letting everybody have access to it. Yeah, I mean, more power to them. I have not played it. I'm not going to speak on it, but I'm all for studios trying new stuff and making new games, even if they don't always succeed at that. I'd rather have something new and interesting that doesn't work out than something that works out predictably, but it's the same game I've already played before.
I think you got new and boring, so you have to decide how you feel about that.
That happens sometimes. Sometimes you get new and boring, but at least it's new.
Yeah, we got there's definitely people in the chat that have played. So Lucius says it seems more like a concept of a game rather than a full game.
Again, not the worst problem to have, I think.
No, I would normally agree with you. Let me get this frame off. I would normally agree with you in that idea. I think the problem you have right now maybe is that there are so many games vying for people's attention that are so good across the board that when a game like this lands flat or half flat, I don't know if people are gonna waste their time on it. I guess we'll see, but
fair enough.
You know, God of Her Sofa King says, laugh out loud, I had no idea what I was playing.
The complete absence of onboarding is crazy in Firebreak. Like nothing. Go nuts. Get in there, fight some monsters.
Yeah.
Play a match. Okay.
Very
and
cool.
Luke over at XCP says it lacks the atmosphere and physics control, which isn't helping it either. So, yep. All right. Well, I guess we'll see how that one turns out. It's sitting at I pulled it up on OpenCritics, sitting at a 64 right now with only 30% of critics recommending it. So not great. We'll see if they evolve it, how it turns out.
I hope for nothing but the best for Remedy. I just can't see this one catching on. Been wrong before. We'll see.
Yeah. I do have one quick mention as well. Hogue, I'm sure you got a couple other Hogue's notes we'll get to as well. One game I wanted to mention quickly was a game called Maestro, which this is going to be niche, I know.
It's the VR orchestra one.
Yes, it is. Yeah. It's kind of funny because I play a lot of Beat Saber. I like those type of games, right? And so I also, as we've joked about on this show, grew up in classical music, playing piano and all this stuff. So there's a game called Maestro. It came out, I believe, on Steam and PC either a year or two ago, and they've updated it. Now it's on PSVR 2. And so I was checking it out, and it's actually quite a lot of fun. So if you basically take the idea of Beat Saber or one of those rhythm games, but you're conducting an orchestra instead with famous classical music, and they even are adding...
I was going to say, Travis, you know, the trailer for this game, Travis, had the Duel of the Fates to show off.
I have played Maestro.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. I was having some fun with it.
It's an older game, yeah.
He just
said a couple years. Yeah. But I just wanted to shout it out because I was randomly sent a code for it, and I was like, oh, this actually sounds pretty cool. I'm surprised I didn't hear this before, and I was playing it the other day and having quite a lot of fun with it. I haven't played Duel of the Fates yet. I'm excited too, but it's pretty neat. So if that interests you, check it out.
I was hoping when I played this game that it would be like you're learning actually like how conducting works. So like I played some songs and then I immediately like took off the headset and I Googled, is this what like conducting is like? And then the first like result was a Reddit thread where a bunch of conductors were like, lol, no. I was just like, damn it. I was hoping I was like gaining skills, and it turned out no.
I don't think it's a conductor simulator. No.
Yeah, that's what I was hoping. I was like, because you know, you play like Rock Band, and it's like, is this how it works? And you know, kind of is, especially if you play Rocksmith, like legitimately intending to teach you how to play. And this is not trying to teach you how to conduct. It's just
I have never assumed I can play guitar from Guitar Hero.
Well, so maybe not guitar, but like I have a friend who the first time he drummed was in Rock Band, and he was like immediately good at the drumming in Rock Band, and I was like, dude, you should be a drummer. Now he is a professional drummer. This was years ago. This was in high school. He is a professional drummer who plays in professional drums in bands, and then he also teaches drumming to people. And I was there when he was awoken as what his inner like calling was. And so I think about that all the time when I play these types of games. I'm like, could I gain a new skill? No, you can't. But it is.
I would think that awoke a passion rather than taught him professional drumming.
No, it didn't. But I asked him later. I was like, how applicable was it? And he was like, honestly, pretty applicable. Like I know guitar's like the opposite because they make you go kind of the opposite direction sometimes for no reason. But drumming, I think you can gain a lot of the skills on fake drums. So
yeah, and I would say in Maestro's case, playing one instrument versus conducting an orchestra is a little different as well.
I have no idea what the conductor does. I'll be honest with you. I was just wondering. I was like, am I going to learn how to do this? No, you're not.
No, but I am looking forward to playing Duel of the Fates. I have loved that song since I first saw. Since it released with Phantom Menace, and it's gonna be fun. So
famous music video on the old MTV.
I of course played long enough to get to Duel Fates and Maestro, of course. Yeah. It's a good game.
It's cool. Hogue, what you got, man? Hogue's notes?
I've got a couple of interesting things, actually. One of them is a game we've talked about that I thought I had played when it came out, but I don't think I did, or else it got a lot of changes in patch, which is Ara History Untold.
Yes.
The Microsoft Civilization-esque 4X game that came out a little while back, got a recent patch that changed the way its map worked. I didn't realize that this game was a combination of two of my favorite things, which is Civilization and Anno. And Anno, if you're not familiar with it as a series, is essentially a kind of supply chain management, city building, gardening game where you're getting these animations up and running like the way you want them to, and everything is intensely animated, and you can build an 18th century village or you can build a 17th century exploration island. And I love them to death. Anno is one of my favorite series ever. We don't talk about it a lot because Annos are very kind of infrequently released. But this Civilization game, Ara History Untold, is essentially a game where instead of just building these cities and having everything abstracted, you're going and you're finding resources and you're making those resources into rope and you're making those rope into baskets and you're making those baskets and putting them in various dwellings so that those citizens are happier, all while playing a 4X type Civilization game. And I just love it. I didn't know that this game was like this, so I don't know what I played before. A lot of the Civilization offshoot brands feel similar to me, the humankinds, the millenniums of the world. And so I don't think I actually wound up trying Ara when I thought I did, but it's on sale right now. It is, I think, 50% off, and I have just had a great time with it this weekend. So if you're at all interested in this kind of game, I can fully recommend checking it out at this point. I also think part of this patch was a performance upgrade. A lot of the Steam comments are about how it was killing the computers, and it's not anymore. So I think it seems like a good time to jump in. I can tell you that I had a lot of fun with it this weekend. So I wanted to mention Ara.
I think, sorry to interrupt you. I think, Don reviewed that for us at launch. So take that for what you will. And I believe, isn't it also on PC Game Pass?
Yes. Well, it was when it launched. I don't know whether it will have left before now and then, but interesting thing about this particular game is that it was published by Microsoft Game Studios. They gave up the publishing rights to Michigan legend, at least here, Stardock Entertainment, that makes Galactic Civilizations and some other 4X type games. And so they are currently publishing the game. They've kind of taken the reins of patching and doing these various other things for it. And so that's an interesting beat, but I don't know what that means for its survival on Game Pass.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, yeah, I recommend it. I really like these types of games. I love Civilization-esque games. A lot of them don't work so much for me. Civilization 7, essentially, I've gotten impatient waiting for them to improve their UI. I like Civilization 7. I like some of the concepts in that game more than some people that are commenting about it on the internet. But they really need to fix their UI, and they've basically promised that for every future patch for the last however many months it's been now, 6. So
yeah, it's been a while.
While I wait for Civilization 7 to get to the place where I want to play it more often, I am going to be playing Ara History Untold.
And yes, it's still on Game Pass. It's also, as you said, it's half off right now on Steam and anywhere else. So cool.
Yeah, so I wanted to mention that one. On the less expensive note, I wanted to mention a game that has been keeping me up, like Ains has been kept up with his games, but I'm sure he hasn't been playing this one, which is an older indie title called Dicey Dungeons, which I've really been enjoying, which is an elegant little rogue thing where you roll dice and place them in equipment to do damage to your opponent. You have all these funny little characters that you fight, but it is really addictive. It is the simpler version of the structure of something like a Slay the Spire or Monster Train. And if you want some of that more simplicity and elegance in its design, I highly recommend it as well. You really can check it out right now. I think I bought it for $3. But those are the Hogue's notes. I wanted to mention Ara, which is not $3, and Dicey Dungeons, which at least when I purchased it was $3. I don't know if it's still on sale at this point in time. But those are the two games I wanted to mention. Otherwise, it's not been a AAA game week. I've been playing through Yakuza 0 for maybe the 5th time on my Switch 2, where it looks great. But I don't have anything new to say about it other than the fact that it's now English voice acted. So you can get your Yang fill from Yakuza 0 if you like.
I'm always asking for my Yang fill.
I know there's a lot of internet commentary on his performance as Kiryu. I don't mind him as Kiryu. I know a lot of people do, but I think he fits just fine as this kind of almost slightly nerdy Heart of Gold Yakuza, which is what Kiryu is. So I don't have any issues there, but it plays well on Switch 2. I've been playing my Switch 2 every day since I got it. I love it to death. We've talked about that on this show. But I said all of that to say I'm not going to talk about Yakuza 0 as part of Hoag's Notes, so I don't know whether that counts or not.
No, it's all good. No, it's good. I'm glad you're enjoying it. I played some more Mario Kart World this week. I'm still playing Mario Wonder, which has been honestly a joy just to go back through because I never played much of it when it first launched. So I've been enjoying that. It's kind of like my game when I just want to not think. That's what I've been playing this week, and it's I'm really, one thing I commented on social media was Mario Wonder's art style or art direction. I don't think gets enough credit. I think it really kind of has that Super Nintendo charm to it while looking modern. It's very, very cool. The details
I like Wonder a lot. I think where I rejected it a little bit is that I don't love all of the Wonder things that they do. I don't love all of the craziness in some of the levels. So as the game goes on, I start to like it a little bit less.
Gotcha. All right. We got a super chat to catch up on from Mr. Don himself, our reviewer.
The Lionhearted.
Yes.
Don Lionheart, $5 super chat. Hey, cast crew. Successful casino day yesterday, money bag emoji, period. Very psychotic way to include an emoji with punctuation. Time to chill today. Play some Infinite Wealth. Tried Mario Kart World. It's fine.
It's
Need
great.
friends, I guess.
You don't need friends. Go online.
You just take it to the streets. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also,
I'm
the
with him on
versus
it's
race.
fine.
Also, the versus race is really very good. So you need one friend, not multiple friends, and have that one friend play split screen with you. But yeah, Mario Kart World have been having a great time with. Play it maybe every other day at this point in time. So glad you're trying it out, Don. But it's more than fine. I promise.
Yeah, it's I think it's one of those, the more I play it, the more I discover and the more I enjoy about it, which I kind of expected given the scope of it. I think I posted to you guys Video Game Donkey. I don't typically watch his content. Nothing against him, but I just don't typically watch it. But he did a 15-minute or so video on Mario Kart World and, some of the details about it that you may not notice immediately. And it's really good. It was impressive. It's also very funny. So check that out.
I'll give it some of my highest praise, which is that every time I turn it on and I'm playing it, I either think or say out loud, man, I like this game. I'm having fun, which is not what I say for everything that I play, even when I am otherwise enjoying myself.
Yeah. So, all right, let's jump topics. We need to talk about Marathon and Bungie yet again, boys, because this week the inevitable happened, which
we thought it already happened.
We thought it had already happened, which is it was indefinitely delayed. So
that's a little unexpected.
Yeah, I mean, delayed out of 2025. And I think the bigger conversation, because I don't want to talk about the same aspects of this we've talked about before. I think we've talked enough about kind of arc raiders. We've talked about the art asset problem, right, that they came up. So I think the bigger question for us now, and especially, Travis, I always look at you here because obviously your history with Destiny and Bungie and, that community is, I was talking with Joe and Luke on Cast the other day and, talking about arc raiders. And I also want to shout out real quick before we dive into this Exoborn, which is another extraction shooter coming later this year that a bunch of us played at Summer Game Fest. I forgot to mention it last week. It's awesome. Like, seriously, like, I'm pumped about this one. It's like if you took an extraction shooter like that and mixed it with like Anthem. You have like traversal abilities, huge map. It's third person, but you can aim down sight in first person. It's excellent. So we'll talk more about that in the future. But I think given all the factors we've discussed, I honestly, and I mean this sincerely, I don't know how Bungie salvages this situation. The stink on this game is so strong. and the negativity around it is so strong. The art issue is a problem. There's competitors that have already outmaneuvered them, at least early on. Where do they go from here?
Yeah, so I think it's really easy to underestimate Bungie, especially when they do this thing always, which is that they don't actually show you what the game is until it's out. And Bungie's very clearly doing that. So full disclosure, I know people who are playing like the in-house play tests for this game. And so they've seen end-game content that we haven't seen yet. And the thing that Bungie is going to be able to do that none of these other games are going to be able to do is have the end game content that you actually want to play. A lot of these types of shooters, they're very fun, and then the longer you play them, the more shallow they feel because they don't have really an end game. It's just to like repeat the same kind of loop and have fun and then reset seasons and that sort of stuff. Bungie has all this stuff in Marathon that they have refused to show anybody, but that anybody who's like a real Bungie hardcore person, A, would expect it from the game already, and B, knows it because they've heard whispers from people who've played it. And so there's like basically Marathon has a bunch of secrets that we haven't seen yet. We've only seen the worst part of it, which is that it is a comparable game in this genre that doesn't really have anything that stand out about it just yet. And I would argue that we haven't seen its best parts. They do this with all of their games, like literally all of them. Destiny, easily like a 5 out of 10, 4 out of 10 game when it came out. And then a month after it came out, they were like, by the way, here's the raid. It's the coolest thing that ever has happened in a shooter like this. And you're like, damn it. Like, where was that? Didn't talk about it. They only mentioned that it was coming like 30 days into it. And I think that is like the singular reason that Destiny was able to live through its first year of underwhelming service, is because there was this really cool thing that people were like, if they can make that, like if they can replicate that over a long period of time, this game is going to be awesome. And they did, and it was.
Well, I still have a pin in the fact that Ben Starr was voicing one of their teaser trailers, and I assume that's going to come back around at some point. But who knows? There's certainly a lot of lore in the Marathon universe that they could be using that is not obvious that they are using yet.
They are using it. The final level takes place on the Marathon, right? And
but that's just the name of a ship. I mean, I don't know whether or not they're actually going to be using the lore bits that I like from the Marathon universe.
The Marathon is not going to succeed or fail based on the lore bits that you like. And I don't think it's the thing that they're going to be focused on. I don't
think it's going to succeed or fail based on me at all. But I think succeed looks increasingly difficult to imagine for this particular project. I'm not sure it gets released.
I think it will come out. I've played too much of it and seen too much of it to think that it'll just die. But the way I'm thinking of this is, obviously none of us are surprised that it was delayed.
No, I thought it had been.
I'm also not surprised it was delayed indefinitely, because I think Sony, though they in the past haven't always been the best steward of live service games or multiplayer games like this, I think the recent experience with Concord has given them pause of like, hey, sometimes maybe it's just better to wait until it's fully done and we can put it out, and then people will like it or hate it the first day. As for the stink on it, I think games have survived far worse stink than this, to be honest. I don't think there's a whole lot of people who know about Marathon's art issues. It's really just insiders and people who pay attention like us. There are, for example, way more public kind of train wrecks, like No Man's Sky when it first came out. I think was a lot more, like even my casual friends who don't know about games were hitting me up like, wow, that game looks terrible. And some of them are playing it now because that game had a chance at redemption. So I think obviously if they come back and they fix the concerns with obviously the art, the concerns with, how are they staying a step ahead of their other extraction shooter peers, which they now have some time to do. And then there's going to be the thing that gets the hardcore people to play, which is the stuff that we haven't seen yet, but we kind of intrinsically know is in the game, which is an interesting end game that's going to be different than any other game in the genre. Like they're going to have that part of it, whether it's like an ARG kind of like community thing, or solving for secrets, or something that completely twists the genre on its head when you get into that end game stuff. There's going to be something like that is going to surprise people. That said, this is all me explaining the stuff that I think can change in Bungie's favor. I am still not super confident in this game regardless, because you still have to sell people the game, and it's not a free game, and a lot of people aren't going to get to or understand or care about that end game unless it catches fire on social, which is kind of its own crapshoot. Like, I know content creators who are going to be in that end game and are going to be publishing content on this and are going to say some interesting stuff, and I'm sure that'll make some kind of a splash. But Bungie sort of needs this to crush it, or A, they're going to lose control of their company per their agreement with Sony from years ago, and B, they possibly will not be a company anymore because their Destiny content is not looking good. Their player population is shrinking and aging, and they don't seem to have a very good plan to reverse that. And so I don't think Destiny's their future. And if Marathon doesn't hit, Marathon can't be their future, which means Bungie probably doesn't have a future, because I don't see Sony funding the studio for the 8 to 10 years it would take for them to develop a Destiny 3 or a completely different game that is none of the things that we know about right now.
Yeah, and I don't see them coming out of this.
Yeah, I don't see them coming out of this if Marathon doesn't hit. I think Marathon not hitting is at this point looking increasingly unlikely. But Bungie has been backed into a corner many times before, and they have always surprised people, and people always underestimate how talented that studio can be at times. I don't know if they still have that in them, but I was at their studio 2 months ago, and I don't think I felt the panic. I think that Marathon, they were like, look, we're at where we're at, and anybody who played it there was pretty stoked about it. At least
I had fun playing it.
Yeah. And I think the fact that there's some competitors that are doing cool things can only help to push them to make something that's unique and different and interesting. And hopefully they'll learn from some of those games, their failures, their successes, now that they're coming out before them. I think the delay was the right call. I'm happy that Sony was able to take that route and didn't, take the other route of like forcing them to put it out anyway, and then it would probably for sure be their tombstone. But we'll see. It's still a crapshoot, guys.
But they don't even have a range for the release date. That doesn't.
Here's what they. So I was
going
to comment on that. I have it. I have the official blog post here. So let me get through this and you can comment.
Yeah,
so
sure.
It says, here's the immediate focus areas for them: upping the survival game, some more challenging, engaging AI encounters, more rewarding runs, new types of loot, dynamic events, more combat that's tense and strategic. Some of that's pretty broad and random. Doubling down on the Marathon universe, increased visual fidelity, more narrative and environmental storytelling, a darker tone on themes of the original trilogy. There you go, Hogue, you're in 100% now. Adding more social experiences, better experience for solo and duo play. And then basically what they say after that is, you'll hear from us again later this fall when we'll share the progress we've made alongside the game's new release date, which I would suspect will be late first quarter, early second quarter next year, spring, you think?
You'd hope that, but as we talked about, I mean, part of the references to like a new dark tone incorporating the universe and things have to be related to, we're going to have to do an art swap of some kind. We're going to have to examine all of our assets, and we're probably going to have to change the identity of how this thing actually looks, which is a problem for marketing, but not as much a problem for the developers. But we don't know how long that process is going to take as a company at Bungie, because we've never done it before. So I understand why they have an indefinite period to allow for the release date, but I don't think it feels good for the consumer base, and I don't think it helps. Ains, you started with the question of the stink on this game.
Yeah.
And yes, I think, Travis, you're right that most people aren't going to necessarily know that, but they are going to know that the game is being delayed another time, and it's going to look completely different than the original trailers did, I think. And that's going to be a problem for both brand identity and people believing in it as a product. So I just don't see them pulling out of this. And Travis, you can say, well, they've done it before. But historical miracle working doesn't mean that it's going to happen in the future. You could have said the same thing about BioWare until they didn't. BioWare had crash trains lead to good games until they stopped having that work for them. And so I think Bungie is in a real sticky wicket here. Pardon me for the language, but real sticky wicket.
Yeah,
No,
you should feel terrible for saying that.
I think you're right. I think going back to your point of Destiny 1 original beta, right, and where that game launched, it definitely was empty. It was, it lacked a lot early on, but it was new, it was fresh, and it was interesting. It was like, oh, this could be something special, and obviously it turned out to be something special. I don't get that from Marathon, and maybe that's just me, but it doesn't feel like that.
A lot of the specialness in Bungie games is, again, it's like I'm trying so hard not to say stuff I shouldn't say right now.
Say it. Just let it all out.
No, I'm not going to do that.
Come on.
I think people who are deep into Destiny know what I'm inferring, right? Which is that like the end game and the things that Bungie does with its games that other companies can't do because it costs a lot of like time and energy and resources that smaller companies don't have. There's going to be stuff in this game that makes you realize like, oh, it's not really just an extraction shooter. It's got other stuff to it.
Sure.
And I think that stuff is going to determine whether the game is successful or not, because I don't think that an extraction shooter that has Bungie gunplay, which is already like pretty good, right?
Yes.
Extraction shooters that have Bungie level gunplay, but I don't think that that's going to I don't think that's going to save the game. I'm not concerned at all about the like branding or the game getting delayed. Like either casuals have not even heard of Marathon yet, or they've heard of it and their games getting delayed is like normal for them. Like GTA 6 got delayed. I don't think the casuals are worried that game's not going to be
you
good.
can't compare this game to GTA 6, man.
I know, but I'm just saying that's the person that is going to determine whether this game is successful or not, are the every gamer. I mean, that's who made Destiny successful.
But this is an online dedicated social experience, right? I think that weighs more on this game than something like GTA or any game.
Well, I mean,
someone would just pick up in a store.
GTA's biggest player base is online.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's my point. I think you're making a poor argument here.
I think you're a little detached from the community at GTA, because a lot of them
I'm not disagreeing with GTA Online. I'm saying GTA Online, comparing that as an online experience to the community of what can be for Marathon, I think is a poor.
I think they're trying to sell to the same person. That's my point.
I think I think, Travis, that you are often very, let's say, gentle with Bungie and the way they operate. And I think that some of the examples that you pulled out, like No Man's Sky, is a historical reclamation project. Like, it is one of the most successful of all time. Yes, if Marathon did that, that would be amazing and they would succeed. But I don't think we can take the one time that really worked very well for a company that definitely shouldn't have released the product that they did as an example for how this is likely to go, right? So I think it's unlikely that that's to happen for Bungie. I think it's unlikely that they're going to be as unaffected as Rockstar is when they inevitably delay whatever their project is, whether it's GTA 6, Red Dead Redemption 2, or whatever's next. That's what that company does. This is delayed when it had a release date in September to a time unknown with the announcement after the original release date. I think even people that were interested in this project are going to note that that's odd. And if it looks completely different, as I think it probably will when we see it next, then that's going to raise another red flag and question marks. And people really do get information, even the casuals, through osmosis, through the buzz, through the vibe that goes around these various products. You're not getting a bad vibe for GTA 6 because this was expected from Rockstar. And yes, even if they are online, that doesn't change the fact that it's a completely different feel for the Marathon project at Bungie. It was different when they announced it, and it's only gotten worse from there, through playtests, through art controversies, through competition. And yes, that might drive the developers to try to reach for excellence. It's certainly not going to help them in the marketplace. And their publisher, their parent that is seeking to potentially control their assets, has already exhibited a very quick trigger finger on getting rid of things that it doesn't like and doesn't work, with new CEO ownership that doesn't believe in this direction of the company in the first place. So there's 600 reasons why this isn't going to work. I'm not saying it's a guarantee that it won't, but I do think on Bungie in particular, Travis, you tend to take a lighter touch than other companies.
Okay, so that is wrong. And I think anybody who's ever seen me talk about Bungie, I'm like the harshest critic of Bungie in the world.
I just did.
And yeah, but the lighter touch is just completely incorrect. Like no, it's just not true. I'm an extremely harsh critic of Bungie. I've been a critic of Bungie basically every step of the way. Every decision they've made for the past like 2 decades, I've had a problem with. So what I'm stating is just the context that they exist in. First of all, the No Man's Sky thing. Yes, I use it because it is the most clear example. It is not at all the only example like you claimed. In fact, live service games in particular have repeatedly and almost universally, all the ones that have succeeded have had bad launches and have had to pivot their games, including the biggest one of all, Fortnite. Fortnite came out as not a battle royale game, and they pivoted and it became the biggest game ever. And so it's actually normal in this space of online games that just have multiplayer mode and are highly engaged social for them to basically have second lives. Did anybody know about Fortnite or care about its brand awareness when it was a shelter defense game? No one knew about it. And then they became a battle royale, and that became when everybody became aware of it, and it grew. So was their brand hurt when they were a completely different game and pivoted? Not at all, because nobody knew about it. And I think the same is true for Marathon. At the end of the day, the game that comes out is going to determine whether people care about it at the time that it's out. People have already forgotten about the beta, if they even knew about it, and I don't think a lot of people did by the time the game actually is like available to play. And then even if it doesn't hit on day one, we've learned that kind of doesn't really matter, because when a game hits, if it cleans up later, if it is allowed to exist long enough for it to try
that's the
again,
key.
it can have a second life. Yes, that is, again, I am in no point in this conversation saying I think it's likely Marathon's going to succeed. I'm explaining the stuff that I think is in its ballpark and the things that don't really matter. And because I know a ton about the live service model, I don't think a lot going on here is unusual, but I still think much more crowded market. The impression so far has been bad. I don't think that they have the social capital and clout that they did when they had Destiny. I think, creators are kind of fleeing them as a way to exist online and have a following. I think Sony is honestly the biggest question here, because as you point out, they sort of have a vested interest in scrapping Bungie for parts. I mentioned years ago when Sony acquired them that it was going to be a brain drain at Bungie, and that has pretty much proven right on the money. And so there's a very good chance that the magic of Bungie pulling themselves out of these tough positions is gone, simply because a lot of their leadership and veterans are working on other projects at Sony, and Sony might not even have a problem with that if their ambition is to make games like this in the future. To your point, Hogue, I think new CEO, they've pivoted. Maybe they don't care about that as much anymore. And so they're kind of looking at Bungie as either this has to succeed or we take what we can and use those resources elsewhere. But they're not really happy about either of those scenarios because they don't want to be in this business. But I don't know that Marathon's going to be successful. I think certainly the chips are against it, but the things that don't concern me are what people's impressions of it so far. I think that's completely irrelevant. And that's just been true of live service games. I also don't think that the delay really matters at all. And the crowded space doesn't frighten me that much, because I think Bungie is doing a different type of game that will make itself apparent when the game comes out. But they have to get there first. The game still has to be good, right? I don't know that they have the team for it. Like there are a million reasons this game will fail, and if I had to put money on it, I would not bet on it succeeding. I'm just pointing out, like, there's some stuff that I'm not as concerned as a lot of people with this game.
Well, I think that's fair, Travis. I do think that the initial impressions not being good speaks to the direction of the game and the leadership that's making Marathon more than you're suggesting. Like, the game has to be good. That's a necessary component at the end of the game. I think we can take the impressions that we've gotten so far and say it doesn't appear to be good, at least for the audience that plays these things. I can't speak to that 100% because I'm not jumping out to get an extraction shooter any day of the week, whether it's from Bungie or anybody else. But the people that do like these things are not responding to them like they're responding to Arc Raiders. I haven't heard anybody describe their experience with Marathon like Ains just did about, what, Exoborn? Was that right?
Exoborn, yeah.
Yeah.
Telling
So,
you,
I mean,
look
it
up.
doesn't have that fire from the people that seem to care about these things. And so, yeah, maybe it could get that in the future. I think what you said about not betting on it is fair. I think that's entirely fair. I just think I understand why there's a certain amount of negativity or stink, as Ains says. And I look at corporate leadership and say, you put a date out there on the calendar that's after when you were going to release this thing to tell me when you're next going to release it. And I get real concerned about how that feels in the room of that company. Is there even the faith in leadership at Bungie, let alone Sony, to proceed with this project? I don't know. I don't see that from a corporate messaging standpoint. And so then I get worried.
I mean, I could tell you, and I won't, but turn the cameras off, and I could tell you my other concerns about Bungie as a company and with their development team and that sort of stuff. But there's a lot of problems with that company and where they're at right now. I'm not super worried about the stuff like what people think about the game right now and that sort of stuff. Games can have second lives, especially in live service space. I don't think Sony's the right company to do it. I don't think they believe in this thing. I think, as you point out, their leadership has shown that maybe this CEO wouldn't have bought Bungie at all, right?
And that's the problem from a corporate perspective, is you don't want to be saddled with the mistakes of your predecessor. And that's what I'm seeing so far from the in between the lines of Sony corporate messaging. But we'll see.
There's a lot of we'll see here. I mean, that's the entire story, honestly.
The other thing I don't really worry about with the competitors is I don't think that this is a zero-sum game with the extraction shooter space.
Agreed.
I think multiple games can be successful here. I think that
I
would say that this potential player base is way bigger than the Destiny pool of people you can win. And I think it's probably similar to like the Fortnite player base. I think it's enormous. And so there's that thing too. If there's multiple exciting games in this genre, people will switch between them as a new season comes out or update or whatever. So I'm not super worried about that. But yeah, they have to prove it. I think the reason I have a little bit of hope, a little glimmer of hope, is because the people I know who have played this game extensively and who have seen end game content that you or I don't know about yet have said this game's going to be special. It's really just a matter of if they can draw people in and get them to like look at it long enough to realize what it is. I think if they can hit that, they'll probably have a small but passionate following. And then the question begins, can they scale that? And can this game have a mass appeal? I'm not sure about any of that. It certainly doesn't look like it right now. And I think there's a pretty good chance, even if they're a qualified success when they come out, that Sony just doesn't give them the support they need to make this game successful anyway. And they kind of just fail, not really because the game didn't have potential, but because the corporate structure didn't believe in it. And I think that's honestly the most likely outcome at this point, that there's going to be a game where people are like, oh, this has got some cool things. It seems to have an upward trajectory. If they work on it 6 months from now, maybe it can be a real big success, and then it never gets that far. That's sort of where I'm, just because I've seen so many live service games launch and you're like, oh, okay, this is interesting. And then out of nowhere, sometimes even weeks after the game comes out, before it's even really gotten a chance to prove that it can be successful, they just announce that they're no longer working on it or something like that, and then the servers go off in a year.
Well, and I mean, we've talked a lot here about PlayStation's leadership and the current state of PlayStation, which is ugly. So,
and I don't even know if that's the wrong choice, right, Ains? Like,
no, I know.
Maybe this isn't what Sony does well, and maybe they should have stuck with the stuff that they're good at. I'm a little bit more bullish on like trying new things and reinventing your business model than I think Hogue would be. But at this point, they don't have a lot to show for it. I would argue their biggest problem was that they half tried, right? Like it seemed that's
exactly right.
And then they sort of were like, actually, no. And they kind of pivoted before. You kind of have to be bad at live service for a while before you can be good at it. And I've heard a lot of people at Bungie say that That is not a line I invented. And so I'm guessing they told that to somebody at Sony, like, look, you have to be bad at this for a while and then you get good at it. And I think Sony said, nah, we're not going to do that. Our shareholders want us to be good at it now. And so that, you can't, some of this you can't scale.
I mean, the tech industry is littered with examples of half investments, right, and half commitment to projects, and I think that's what we saw out of PlayStation with live service, which we've talked about extensively here. Is we're going to do 12 projects or 14 projects. We're going to go all in. This is where we're going, and then before they even really got their foot out the door, they were like, "Oh, this is going to take way too long and cost too much, and yeah, we got to change course." And now they're in limbo with literally nothing coming out for what seems like a while, but that's a whole nother discussion. But we got to pull up on the SG side of the house. You can take a look at it. Let us know if you think they're going to pull this one out. It'll be interesting. And I do agree with you. I mean, I think a lot of the points you both made are valid in various degrees. I think the thing I would agree with you, Travis, is I know there seems to be a subsection of people that are like, extraction shooters. But I mean, we heard the same thing of Battle Royale, right? It's like, Battle Royale, I'm not interested in that. And it pretty much dominates the landscape right now. So I think that absolutely, when you look at extraction shooters, when I've played all three, right? I've played Arc Raiders, Exoborn, and Marathon. All three are vastly different. And so I think there is space for success with just one, right? It doesn't have to be one. You look at PUBG, you look at Apex, you look at Fortnite, you look at these different things. They're very different playing games, and they're all successful in different ways. So I'm hopeful because I did have fun playing it, right? And I think there is something there, but it's definitely messy at the moment. So we'll see. One quick comment. You said I said maybe spring. You think a full year delay at minimum?
I think it'll be fall. Yeah, I do.
Wow.
Bungie typically, when they've delayed games, they've delayed it for a long time. Like, or there's actually two types of Bungie delays. There's a Bungie delay where they go, we just need one more month. They've done that a few times. Those are usually for like expansions for ongoing games or like a multiplayer map pack or whatever. They're like, we just need one more month. And then the other type of delay they do is like, we're going back to the drawing board and we're going to make a whole bunch of new stuff and it's going to cost a bunch of money. This is obviously the latter. And every time they've done this, it's been like 9 to 12 months between.
Okay.
So I would be willing to bet this comes out fall of next year, depending on when they can slate it in with the other stuff that is going to come out next year.
Okay. Yeah, we'll see. Don't release it next to GTA 6.
Well, I don't know that you have to worry about GT being too early in the year, but we'll see.
Yeah,
probably.
So shout out real quick before we move on to the next topic, because we can segue off of this one pretty well, actually. But shout out to the 215 plus concurrent with us right now, hanging out. Please tickle those buttons, as Hogue says.
Yes.
Hit those likes, share it out, do the
Google. I wish
YouTube
I didn't know that
things.
Hogue said that. It makes me upset.
You gotta tickle Google's buttons. It loves.
He's not even usually talking about the shows either. It's
really, I'm really uncomfortable.
Tickle those buttons. But let's talk about a shooter that is coming out soon and seems to be getting a lot of positivity, which excites me greatly, as we were talking about in the pre-show, which is Borderlands 4. So Borderlands 4 got press previews this week. They had Borderlands Fan Fest yesterday, where they showed the story trailer along with a bunch of streamers and content creators, playing through pieces of the game. So there's a lot of footage out there if you're interested. But Travis, I'm gonna get on your case here a little bit. I thought we had an agreement, and I thought we were friends, and I thought we understood that, generally speaking, NDAs don't mean anything. It specifically says when you sign an NDA, it actually says at the bottom, typically in my experience anyway, that close friends are not subject to this NDA. And so the fact that you have information on Borderlands 4 that you have not shared with me, I think really puts this friendship and the show in jeopardy. And I want to be
snitch
clear
on myself, but you want to know the worst part, Ains? This preview happened 2 months ago.
This son of a bitch.
That's a lot of shows.
Guys,
it was
should I just kick him?
Ago.
Should I just kick him? I think I
Yeah.
need to just kick him.
Please
Talk to me
do.
about Borderlands 4, my friend.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm not gonna make any medieval time jokes. Don't worry. I'm not gonna do it. I swear. This time I'll make it through talking about a 2K game without bringing up medieval time. No, so yeah, I played Borderlands 4. For those who don't know, I'm a huge Borderlands fan. Borderlands 2 is one of my favorite games of all time. I have every achievement in Borderlands 1 and 2, which is kind of a big deal because some of those achievements. You know what, Ains? I don't care about achievements, but sometimes it helps people know how much you've put into a game, especially with online games where the achievements are incredibly obtuse to get. And I've got all of them. So yeah, I also, like many people, fell off the series a little bit with Borderlands 3. Didn't fall off. I played that full game and I probably played through it multiple times. Actually, I guess pre-sequel I also was a lot less invested in, but gradually over the years, my thesis for the preview, which its headline is Borderlands 4 sets its sights on reclaiming the looter shooter throne. My thesis for the preview is basically that Borderlands invented the genre of the looter shooter, and then they watched themselves get left in the dust in that genre they invented over the years, to the point where I think a lot of people look at Borderlands as kind of like an older school version of what a lot of games are these days.
Mm-hmm.
This is them basically sticking to their guns in key areas, like their refusal to become an online games as a service game, which I think is the correct choice, and evolving in specific ways to make themselves more like their competitors and more kind of modern, right? They're trying to modernize that. And the specific battles that they're choosing to fight and the ones that they're basically just like conceding, I think are all right now looking pretty smart. So I'll give you a few examples. Battle they're not trying to fight, games as a service. They don't want to be an online game. They don't want to have live service updates and events. They want to do the same DLC model that they've done in the past. We all agree that's a good idea, I think. So they're sticking to that. The things that they're changing on, which are really surprising, the tone of the game and the like comedy to seriousness ratio of the game, which is really interesting.
It's much more like darker
Yeah.
tone, more kind of seriously written.
They're also abandoning Pandora altogether. So it takes
It's
place
about
on
time.
Yeah, I think so. So they're abandoning like the world of Pandora, and they're telling the story on a new planet, which is basically kind of their main character, Kairos, which is a kind of dystopian cyberpunk world where they have achieved perfect unification by this bad guy named the Timekeeper, who basically controls everybody with cybernetic implants so that they all do what they say. And it's perfect and orderly. And because of the events that happen at the end of the Borderlands 3 story, that order is disrupted. And so you come in as Vault Hunters and start destroying this perfect society that they've built through enslavement and murder, basically, that this perfect world that he's achieved. And so it has kind of this like dark tone of like this dystopian society that you're kind of delving into and figuring out things about, but then it combines that with some of the good old-fashioned sexual innuendos and shenanigans of the Borderlands franchise. And so you've got characters that are really cheeky and saying stuff, and there's a boss I fought who's like obsessed with having his nipples tweaked or whatever, like he's just like kind of a fetish guy. And so you do stuff like that where it's like, okay, this is still Borderlands, they're still going for it with the silliness. But the thing that really connected with me with Borderlands 2 is the fact that there was a serious side to it that kind of opened with like the goofiness. And then the farther you get into the story, the more you're like, oh, there's like actual characters here and development and serious moments. And then you kind of get the best of both worlds. And it seems like they're trying to go back to that rather than what they've done lately. And I would say even in games I like Tiny Tina's Wonderland, like that game is sort of like intentionally frivolous and goofy all the way through. And I think that is to its detriment because it lacks just like a little bit of like layer of depth so that you have something to anchor yourself to so that then you can care about the jokes.
Which Borderlands 2 had.
Borderlands 2 had that. Like
Yeah.
Handsome Jack was a douchebag and that was funny, but also I kind of was like, God, what is up with this guy? Like there's something going on here. And then you figure out what that thing is the longer the game goes on, and you kind of there's a payoff to it. And I think you lacked that in Borderlands 3, absolutely no payoff. And even in games I like Tiny Tina's Wonderland, there's not really the same type of payoff in the way that we think of it. And so I'm hoping that they will do that, and they alluded to that at every step of the way that was going to be in the story. The parts of the story that I saw were a little earlier in the game, but there was one vault I ran in particular where there was a character talking to me in the background, and I could already tell there was some stuff going on that was a little bit more grounded, which is really cool. The main thing that you will like, Ains, about this game is how much they have improved the gunplay. And it is probably the most substantial improvement they've made so far. I've seen a lot of commenters say, I want Borderlands 2, but with Borderlands 3's gunplay. That's like all I want, right?
Yeah.
And I think if they hit that goal, people would still be underwhelmed, because although Borderlands 3 was a huge improvement on Borderlands 2, I think today Borderlands 3 already feels kind of older in its game design. And so they're trying to aim a good deal above Borderlands 3, and I think that so far from what I've played, they're going to hit it. The main thing is your traversal options are incredibly reworked. So they added like the slide, and everybody freaked out. This game has not just the slide, double jump, gliding, a grapple hook. You can swim now. They added like 6, I think, different traversal options that are just like completely different ways to interact with the environment and make sure the way you navigate the world different. And then also the level design is way different, because now you can swing yourself across gaps and double jump. Oh yeah, there's also a midair dash, which I know you're a big fan of, Ains. So you can do side dashes, or you can also do a forward dash, that sort of thing. And then you can also summon your vehicle wherever you're at, like instantly, which is a huge change, because Borderlands had that really annoying like run to the car station and summon it every time you blow up, and now you can just summon it right away, and if it blows up, it has a cooldown, which is probably how it should have worked always. But yeah, it works that way now. And so they're making a lot of changes to modernize the way that it plays, which is really cool. The setting is completely different. The tone is totally different in a way that I think is kind of interesting. It obviously still has immature jokes, which I'm a fan of. And then the RPG mechanics are a part I didn't get to see enough of, but I will tell you, the developers at Gearbox consider Borderlands a shooter first and foremost, and almost all of their design is about shooter, and RPG is definitely on like the tertiary level of priorities. And so they've kind of always been that way, because their build crafting has always been kind of minimal. I would say that this is an upgrade, but if you're expecting it to be on the same level as some like looter shooters that are more RPG heavy, it definitely is leaning away from that. And so the main way that they have the RPG mechanics is obviously of skill trees, but the skill trees are pretty basic. They're basically like kind of built, like they're very basic.
I was hoping they do more with them.
They definitely don't. There are effectively like 3 different trees that you can build into, and each of those trees has a couple different big options and then a few little buffs here and there. And so they definitely don't focus a ton on that. But the main way that they are an RPG is in their guns, as you know, which they're very boastful about. And this adds some new gun manufacturers to the mix. I think there's 3 new ones. My criticism with this so far is that 2 of the gun manufacturers feel really similar to other gun manufacturers we've already seen before, other weapon types. The one that was new is the new, I forget what they're called. I think it's the Order. The new faction that you're playing against, they have their own gun manufacturer type. And that one is interesting because it has like alternate fire modes where you've got like a pistol that you shoot people with. And then its alternate fire mode is it like creates a vortex kind of wormhole thing that you can shoot. And it does AoE stuff. And so they're doing some interesting things with that. But I think in terms of like new ideas with guns, they've sort of run out of a lot of ideas because they've done everything. And I think that's kind of okay. It'll be about like the uniques and the legendaries and stuff like that. And then also people will just forget about the silly stuff like a gun that reloads by you throwing it and it exploding in somebody's face. Like stuff like that is always just fun to see, even though they've done it before.
Well,
Yeah,
not to interrupt you on the gun piece, but the new, if I have it correct based on what I've read, the new thing in this one, which is new for the franchise, is that it always used to be a gun manufacturer. You would get that gun and they had different levels of all the guns. This one can, as you get up and up in rarity, there's actually guns that have pieces, all the components of different manufacturers, right? So it's possible to find like this legendary gun that you love, but it may have a scope or barrel or mag or from a different manufacturer that you love, and it can completely kind of change the way that gun functions.
So I didn't get to see a ton of that. The sections I played were, I played the first few hours of the game after, I assume, an opening story. So like right when you land on Kairos. And so I got to see the beginning build crafting where I was basically gaining 0 unique weapons. And so there's a very real chance I simply have just not seen enough guns to have an informed opinion about it, because I am assuming they're giving you more familiar weapons at the beginning of the game. And then the second section I played was like maybe 2 hours of the first vault. And so vaults are sort of like their big pinnacle activities that happen throughout the campaign at specific story moments, but they're also the thing that you're pursuing as part of the end game. And you have to find keys to them on the map, parts of a vault key, and then you have to go and open the vault and do like basically a dungeon. And so it was this big not end game, but like more difficult dungeon fight, and then it ended in a boss fight. This game had 2 separate embargoes, but I think both are up, so I can talk about all this. They did this weird thing where I could only talk about like the beginning of it on Wednesday, and then on Saturday yesterday suddenly I could also start talking about the vault and the boss.
That's what FanFest was.
After FanFest. And so when I did the vault, I had a mid-level character, and I started seeing some interesting stuff like new manufacturers. And then I was also the only person at this preview event who got a legendary to drop for me. Not only did I get 1, I got 4 legendaries when I was there, which is no one else even got 1, and I got 4. But also I was like blowing through the vault. I ran the boss like 8 times. So I was just like grinding. I was just doing my old Borderlands boss grind, which was really cool. And the legendary I found was a Jacob's pistol, where if you were scoped in, you could press the trigger and it fired all the bullets at once. And so
I'm already sold.
Yeah, I just burned through people. So I fought the boss with that, and once you get through its shield and you get to the red bar, like literally I was just burning it, like killing the boss in like 3 seconds.
Jacobs is
just,
my
just blasting.
Jacobs is my manufacturer, because that's the one that's more like the classic, just DPS critical hits. Yeah.
So that was really cool. I also want to talk about the boss fight, which was the best boss fight Borderlands has had today. And I've done all of the boss fights, including the endgame ones. The reasons it was cool is it was extremely mechanics heavy. So it was this giant lizard guy, and his abilities were that he like used his tails to whip you around, and he would like grab onto you and pull you toward him and then smack you away. And in order to get out of it, you had to use all the traversal options. Like you had to jump over his tail when he did like a floor sweep, or side dash when he tried to do a grab. And if you weren't using all of the traversal options, he was just gonna slap the crap out of you and kill you. It was pretty. I beat him without like wiping or having to start the fight over, but like the vast majority of people at the preview event were like 4th, 5th try before they got him down. We were all playing solo initially, so it was not really how you're supposed to play Borderlands, but you get the idea. And then he also has multi phases. Like he does this thing where he goes into a cocoon and he starts healing himself, and while he's in the cocoon, the entire floor becomes poisonous, and these vines come down around the room, and you have to basically use a combination of grappling and gliding to stay in the air as long as possible while you shoot at the cocoon and like burn it down. And it's throwing these poisonous spores everywhere that you're having to dodge out of the way of. And so it basically was sort of a tutorial / skill check on how well you knew all of Borderlands' traversal options. It was like you have to use the grapple. Oh yeah, the other thing was you had to use the grapple to expose his crit points. So he would get like little markers on him, and you grapple them, and then it would turn into a crit point that you like pulled open one of his little buds. He's like a little plant lizard. You opened the buds, and then you can shoot them. And so like if you've played Borderlands, a lot of the main bosses basically don't really have mechanics, maybe like super light mechanics. And then the end game bosses tend to have more, where it's like, all right, you have to break a shield or do something like that. This was extremely heavy, which is like multi-phase. Every phase had multiple mechanics that you had to master and figure out. And it was definitely Borderlands' best work in terms of boss fights. Now, there's a chance they showed this boss fight because they knew it was good. There's also a possibility that they wanted to show this because this is what boss fights are like in Borderlands 4. I don't know. I only played 2 boss fights. One of them was mostly the same, and this one was like very unique and well polished. So we'll kind of see if this is a outlier or more kind of representative of what boss fights are like in Borderlands. But either way, it was extremely cool. Probably the coolest part of the demo was fighting that boss. And then getting a legendary and beating him like 7 more times was also super awesome.
No, I think everything you described gets me pumped up. I said the other big thing I'm really excited for is they said, like, the regions in the game are much larger. They're not as segmented into zones as previous, at least from the preview.
Yep.
I'm excited about that. It's more of like a big open world shooter where you can just go kind of explore. And I think the traversal probably plays a part of that, right? The only thing I was hoping for that I haven't liked is I was hoping for more deeper skill builds, more like a full ARPG style, which they don't seem to be doing, which is okay.
Correct.
But the rest of it looks and
I'll talk to
sounds
both
amazing.
of those. One, I had mentioned that I was going to call it an open world game, and the developers reached out to me explicitly to tell me to not say that, which is pretty interesting. A little insider baseball there. I mean, I'm not beholden. I could call it whatever I want, but they were like, we don't call it that because it really isn't. It is sort of the same kind of hub worlds. The hubs are bigger. And the cool thing about the maps, Ains, is that there's stuff to find in it. Like I had to solve this puzzle where I had to get to the top of like this big tower and then glide to another place that you could only get to from gliding from a really high point. And I found sort of a vault key. And so there's stuff like that where it's like, oh, okay, there's like interesting ways to interact with this world, but they are still hub areas and not an open world in the way you would think of it. As for the build crafting, yeah, you're pretty much on the money there. They are a shooter first, and the RPG mechanics are interesting. You can do kind of builds, but the builds feel more or less pre-built. I mean, you're kind of going to want to choose specific things along the path, depending on which tree you chose. And there's not a ton of like variety or build crafting and theory crafting with that sort of stuff. It's pretty straightforward.
Okay.
Robert Friley in the comments asked if Doll is in the game.
I answered.
Doll is not in the game.
Yeah, but Daedalus kind of looks like the same thing.
Correct.
Or similar.
Daedalus is the new Doll. It's the exact same manufacturer, and that's sort of my point with it, right? They were like, "Oh, we got 3 new gun manufacturers." It's like, okay, well, one of them is the same manufacturer. You just renamed it.
And Ripper sounds like
Ripper is the bandit or whatever.
Yeah.
The bandit one. It's the exact same thing. And so the only new one that I saw was called the Order. And that one, to their credit, was kind of new, but I think them saying like 3 new gun manufacturers is a little bit of a
disingenuous
cheating. It's a little bit of cheating on the number count there. But both of those, Daedalus is interesting. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, man. I'm pumped. Hogue, you are traditionally not a huge Borderlands guy, if I recall correctly, or kind of middling.
Yeah, I have nothing against the series. I've just never connected with it as much as what I'm hearing from you, Ains, or what Travis has just described, which is to say, I've basically always felt it was a little bit mechanically not terribly interesting. And I was actually thinking while you were describing all this, Travis, like what actually draws me to Borderlands, because it was initially they had all these gun combinations, and that was the original trailer for Borderlands, and I liked the cell shading. But actually playing it, I would usually burn out. I would get bored, even in Borderlands 2, where I know one of the things you referenced, Travis, earlier when we were talking about Marathon was, do we know what the end game is, and that it's not just going to be this extraction shooter, and that there are a lot of games where you play it and then you realize it's shallow because you just are going through the same motions. I think that's where I wind up on Borderlands for the most part, is I enjoy it. I like it. I like being in there for the first, I don't know, dozen hours. And then it's, what am I doing? Why am I playing? So if they have an increase in storytelling, if they're focused a little bit on having more of that drive, I think that's going to be very useful to me.
How far did you get in Borderlands 2 story?
Borderlands 2, I think I beat, but it's a while back, so I'm not positive on that. And I do tend to mix up Borderlands 2 with parts of the pre-sequel. So
interesting.
Those are two vastly different experiences.
Yeah,
Because
very
the
different
sequel's not
stories.
great.
apologies there.
Yeah.
You don't remember like the story twists in Borderlands 2? There's some
No.
pretty heavy ones. Okay.
I will
don't.
never forget the I'll just say the bird. That one
Oh
always
yeah.
lived with me.
The bird's cool, even though that's not. I'm thinking more about the like Handsome Jack story stuff with his family and all that.
later
That
on.
stuff-
Yeah.
Yeah, that stuff's
good.
crazy.
But
Well,
Mordecai
either I
was
didn't
my
see it or it didn't impact me, so I apologize there.
Mordecai was my favorite guy from the original, the sniper. I always played him, and so with part 2 and what happens with the stuff, I was like, oh, yeah, they got me.
That's the other thing I should mention. There were no recognizable characters from Borderlands 1, 2, or 3 in this game. The only one was Claptrap, who was like mentioned, and maybe he's like a quest giver or something. But like all the NPCs I met were completely new. I didn't have like a Vault Hunter from the last game in my ear or anything, and so it kind of almost felt like a soft reboot, like new location, not relying on the characters from the previous game, which is sort of their MO, right? The old Vault Hunters become like voiced characters in the next game or whatever. Didn't do that from what I saw. And it felt like a very different kind of story. And so I'm really interested in how true that is. Like how,
Yeah,
how
true sequel would be good.
Yeah.
So I know Zane shows up, who is a Vault Hunter in 3, but he's not like in your ear. Like he's in the story trailer. So he's there somewhere. Claptrap obviously will be roaming around at some point.
He's the mascot. Yeah, he's got to be.
Yeah, and they did show Moxie in the story trailer yesterday. But other than that, I think you're right. Like obviously the Timekeeper is meant to be the new hard villain. I think they heard pretty clearly the feedback that Handsome Jack was an amazing villain. Your villains in part 3 kind of sucked. So it feels like they're going back to that tone. And then there's a couple other they list on the site here that are all new as well. So yeah, I agree with you, Travis. It seems like they've taken all the feedback over the past few years, and I didn't realize time just flies, guys. I didn't realize Borderlands 3 came out in 2019, 6 years old, which is crazy to me. I thought I would have guessed like 3 to 4.
That's a pretty old game at this point.
From the before times, yes.
The medieval times, you could say.
That was. I did not know my wife in 2019. Never.
There
met
you
her.
go. There you go. No, but I was thinking about these things, and I will say to everything Travis said, I actually feel like at least what has been described to him is the right impulse. I love RPGs, Ains. I love getting to build craft with things, but I think that Gearbox is better positioned to have the kind of streamlined, not really building, but kind of picking up skill points on the fly than something more formalistic, because I don't think it would fit into the universe. I don't know that they would be good at it necessarily. I don't like to prejudge things that didn't happen. But I think that's the right impulse. I think darker, more invested in the universe is the right impulse. I think what Travis just described about kind of setting apart what we used to do is the right impulse. I think you tend to make the universe seem very small when it's always just in the same kind of bubble. And so I'm excited about getting out of Pandora, going to some place new and exploring a completely new set of circumstances. I like that idea. Everything that he has described is the right direction, I think. Whether or not they execute on that, I don't know. But I think it's the right moves for this series. I will undoubtedly be playing Borderlands 4. I'm probably not going to have it like high on my hype excitement list, but I hope it's great.
Yep.
Yeah, the other last thing I wanted to mention is they also have some new slotted items which are kind of interesting, like accessories and whatnot. Like now you have a healing item that you can consume, and it's on a respawn or what do you call it?
Timer.
Timer.
Cooldown.
A cooldown. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. It's on a cooldown. And that's interesting because Borderlands has always done healing through pickups or like getting kills if you have like
cooldown is way better.
Cooldown. Well, they do both. So people still drop healing items and you can heal the traditional way, but they also have like, a stim you can stab yourself with, and you can use it in a few interesting ways. One, you can either just find one that does a lot of healing like you're supposed to, or if you're a more risky player, you can find one that explicitly does no healing or almost no healing and instead like jacks you up and makes you do more DPS or move faster or something like that. And so you can choose to turn it into like an offensive tool and forego its healing properties, which I thought was pretty interesting. And then also, unlike the grenades, was like the one area where I was like, oh, this has a lot more variety. Like I found one that was just throwing knives, and so it traded my grenade for like 3 throwing knives. So I was just like hitting people in the head, getting kills, and they do like ridiculous damage because they do no guiding with the bullet. It's just like you throw it straight and you have to just get it like on the money. So high risk, high reward with the throwing knives. I've actually got a lot of good kills with the throwing knives if you watch my preview. I went into this being like, look, Borderlands has been on its back foot as a series for a while now. It's something I like, but I like it because of like, we need more comedy games in the world and they do goofy stuff. And I have an affinity for that. Now I'm actually more confident that they could stand among their peers and possibly even surpass a lot of their peers and become, relevant again in this genre. So I'm hopeful for that. Time will tell if they're successful. At this point, I think their biggest problem is Randy Pitchford saying crazy shit online that's pissing people off and giving people a bad. I mean, if you look at my preview, IGN and YouTube, all the comments are about the comments that Randy Pitchford has said recently and how it's just making them not want to play this game, which is really unfortunate for a team of developers that seem to be trying pretty hard to make their game good. So,
and I turned on FanFest yesterday where I pulled it up briefly and I'm like, oh man, I hope, should be good talking about the game and whatnot. And he's right there center stage. I'm like, just get him off the stage. Like, go away. I don't know. Like, no one wants to hear from you. I know it's your company. I get it, but come on, do it for the good of your people. Or let other people shine, right? Like a good leader should, find those people that can be up on that stage and really get people pumped. He's not doing that. So, some commentary. Gearbox was like, we need a dude who reviewed Nerf Legends. Fair. Travis doesn't respect a friend, DA.
True.
No,
I don't.
He should correct that. Wow, Travis, way to let Ains down. Also true.
You seem to be curating a very specific type of comment.
No, this is complete RNG. This is
okay,
random.
got it. I got it.
Okay, question from Fatboy Horror, a legitimate question: is the Nipples boss actually Randy?
Maybe inspired by. He was like one of those guys who like he's talking in your ears and he's like, I can't remember if he was being tortured and into it or it was something weird like that where you're like, okay, they're doing the sex thing. Which good for them.
Yeah, fair enough.
We
Serious
more
question.
Bosses, don't we?
Do we?
Yeah, obviously.
One of the things I didn't actually talk about earlier when we were talking about date anything is how strange the various character arcs are, because some are like wholesome Disney dating and some are very not, and it's just a strange mix of personalities.
It's a horny game for horny people, and we are here for it. Okay, so
it has matchmaking.
Hoag's just too horny. It's just I need to.
Yeah, I think
we're trying to talk about Borderlands.
Borderlands traditionally is you can play with up to 3 friends, right? It's 4-player. The host gets the story progression, like you've seen in other major multiplayer co-op games. Obviously, once you get the end game, doesn't really matter at that point when you work together. And it does have matchmaking. You can, well, at least it has traditionally had matchmaking where you can play with randoms if you want to.
Yes, all of that is still true. All of that is still there. Loot is instanced. I think that is now just like a permanent change they made. Used to be you could choose to be loot ninja mode. I think that's gone now. But yeah, it's you play with your friends is the best way to play it. I think this one does not have split screen, or if it does, it's 2-player. I can't actually remember. I played on PC where the idea of playing split screen is basically non-existent. I did get to play some multiplayer
online and couch co-op. That's couch.
Okay, so then the couch co-op is 2-player split screen only, but you can play play online with additional people as well, and
full cross-play as well.
Rob Frawley says instance loot is amazing. Clearly, this man has he's just Not fast enough to compete. It's whatever, dude.
One of the
the
biggest threads I've ever. So if you go back to the forum days before
Mhm.
social media was big, right? One of the biggest threads I ever created and argued in was on the Borderlands forum for Borderlands 2, where they kept non-instance loot when Borderlands 2 launched, right? And I told them that was a mistake and loot should be instance in multiplayer, and that thread went for hundreds of pages.
Okay,
of
but
just debate.
Borderlands 2, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was optional when it launched.
Nope.
It was for everyone?
It was loot for everyone when it
Wow,
launched.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I played a ton of that game, but I only ever remember loot being instance, so it must have been a pretty
after that point, it's all been instant since, and I was like, see, told you.
Yeah. Well, I like the idea of being able to do both. I think if you do non-instance loot, the loot should be better, but there's obviously it has to be shared. Honestly, Borderlands is a game about sharing loot. Like you can drop guns and do that stuff, and so it's sort of interesting to me. There also was like a big part of Borderlands culture, especially in Borderlands 1, about loot ninjas, people who would just like take the good loot without saying anything and putting it in their inventory and being like, "Oh wow, no good drops, so crazy." And so I think there was like a little bit of nostalgia where people were like, "Oh, but that's how they did it originally." So yeah, I kind of have a little bit of rose tinted glasses for the new Ninja world, but I get why it feels bad to
garbage,
especially casuals like Rob and Ains.
Funny of a true story, that thread on the Borderlands forum at the time was how I met Elu, who's our lead editor at SG and our mod here. That's how we met, was through that thread.
Nice.
Funny. Well, yeah, excited about Borderlands 4. Thank you for the info. I still hate you regardless. So we'll deal with that offline. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Boys, we also got a very, very cool, and I'm glad because, I've been excited for this since the announcement, but I think a lot more people are excited now is Nintendo's Direct on Donkey Kong Bonanza. We got about a 16-minute give or take look at the game, which even for me, like I was already pumped. Even for me, it showed a lot of details I didn't expect in this game, and a lot more depth to the game, seemingly anyway, than I expected. And man, this is easily one of my most anticipated games, which you know me, I never say for a Nintendo game, but I am pumped for this game. It looks like, jokes aside, it looks like the modern evolution of a Banjo Kazooie game I've been wanting for years and years and years. I'm pumped, man. This one looks great.
Well, it's seemingly 100% the Odyssey team. So stop hiding the ball, Nintendo. There's so much Odyssey DNA in Bonanza that was not evident before this Direct. But yeah, this is how you do it.
From a hater to a believer.
I was not a hater on Bonanza. I was not a hater on Bonanza. I was not excited about it. I had it pre-ordered for a long time.
We call that a hater in this house.
And I'm still not convinced about the art style. I really don't like the aesthetics of this game. But the actual game itself, I am looking forward to. They showed off a lot of new stuff. I love little teenage Pauline on Donkey Kong's back, singing to everything. I love a lot of what they showed, and it's the exact opposite of what they did with the Mario Kart World Direct, right? When that Direct ended, you're like, I know nothing more than what they showed in their initial reveal for Mario Kart World. This is the opposite. They either learned their lesson or just didn't know what they were doing as between the two videos and got lucky with this one. Don't really care. But this game looks rad. It looks like a 3D adventure game that Nintendo has needed for some years. It looks like the Odyssey game systems. And I wish I liked some of the artistic direction a little bit more, because otherwise this thing looks perfect, and I'm really excited about it next month.
Yeah, it's less than a month away. I'm super pumped. Go ahead. No, go, Travis.
Oh, I was just gonna say, when it comes to art style, there's two versions of Donkey Kong.
It's not Donkey Kong that bothers me.
Okay.
He means the kind of like you said in our chat, that the more garish aspect.
Exactly. I'm talking about not just the character. I'm talking about just the world of Donkey Kong. There is the kind of cool Donkey Kong where, he's wearing shades and the DK wrap, and he kind of looks like intimidating and all that stuff. And it's a more kind of I don't know. They're trying to make him like Bowser, basically. And then there is absolutely unhinged. I think this guy might have dementia. type Donkey Kong where everything is as goofy as possible and Donkey Kong looks cartoonish and silly and the world is cartoonish and silly. I am a fan of the latter. I think it's more interesting. I think it's more unique in the gaming world. And I like it when Donkey Kong is a weird goofball and his world is a weird goofball cartoon world. And so
Yeah,
I'm pretty, this one clicks with me. It just looks like fun and stupid and goofy. And I like what's the Voidco guy, the creepy goblin that steals the bananas. You guys remember that guy?
No.
Okay. Well, I like that guy. I'm gonna look him up. I don't know what he's called.
No, I honestly don't remember, but I was surprised. I was surprised at some of the things they showed here. So, like a mini, it's probably not deep, right? But it has a skill tree. You can unlock like additional abilities for him. I like the transformations, going back to your point, Hogue, about Mario Odyssey, right? It plays in that space. The traversal looks amazing. The areas look nice and big and explorative. And I like, they even showed what is essentially, I guess, like a world map where you go through the layers, right, of the levels and the layers of the thing. I mean,
yeah, that's the Odyssey map.
Yeah. So just everything I saw about this, I don't know how I got so lucky, because you guys recall even before the Switch 2, the first direct where they showed the console finally officially and the games, I was like, what I really want more than anything is a big 3D Donkey Kong game. And I don't know how I got so lucky that this came true and I'm getting my Donkey Kong game. So I'm pumped.
You are.
This guy, what's this guy called? Ains, do you know?
Where are you looking?
And
he put it on the signal.
Oh, got you. He looks like a Mogwai that drank after midnight.
He definitely does.
Exactly. He's a goblin guy. That guy. I like this dude.
I don't know who that is.
I don't know what he's called, but he was in one of the trailers, and I think that's what I want in Donkey Kong World to look like. I want it to have that energy in its villains, and that's funny to me.
Well, after this direct came out, I looked to see whether Nintendo had updated Odyssey for the Switch 2, and they had. So I downloaded Odyssey, and I was playing it some because this direct reminded me of the game so much. And I just so vastly prefer the aesthetics that they have achieved in Odyssey to what they have shown so far in the environments of Donkey Kong Bonanza. It's just very garish, harsh, different coloration, all of the worst aspects of a Sonic the Hedgehog casino level in seemingly every frame. And it's not aesthetically pleasing to me. I'm sure the game will be good and fun now. I'm looking forward to playing it, but I'm not looking forward to looking at it, if that makes sense.
I like the garishness. It's bold.
I like the look of it. I think I'm hoping anyway, because one thing I got to give credit to Nintendo, especially, I play mostly docked on my TV, right? But there's a noticeable image jump, obviously, from the Switch 2 to Switch 1 and the HDR edition, and it just, everything looks really kind of well done. Like playing Mario Kart World on the OLED looks great, right? And so I'm hoping that this in person on the big screen on OLED, right, will just pop and it'll look really good. Hopefully it doesn't pop and blow your eyes out, Hogue. But yeah,
it's just not a look that I like. Every time I see it, I'm like, that is not as good looking as Nintendo games usually look.
It's for kids.
It's for kids is the worst part of criticism. Oh, don't care about the Star Wars plot. It's for kids. Don't care about how this looks. It's for kids. I got to tell you, my kids are more discerning than apparently every internet commenter that likes to say it's for kids.
I think that sometimes it's used as an excuse to explain away valid criticisms, but sometimes it's like, well, this is an aesthetic that appeals more to kids, and it's not worse. And I think silly colors and over the top garishness is sometimes fun.
I mean, we're going after banana diamonds. That's the plot of the game.
Banandium.
And his eyeballs turn into bananas with diamonds on them when he looks at them.
While I was watching this direct, I thought by the time we got to Banenergy that Travis must just be over the moon with this level of punnage.
I was. Yeah, that's exactly right. So I think
it's great.
Yeah, to your point, sometimes it's for kids is used as a kind of escape route for criticism. But in this case, what I mean is that I think they're trying to appeal to the childlike nature within each of us, and that is an attribute I try to hone and maintain into my my adult years. So,
all right, Travis, I managed to get your picture up into our platform. I think maybe, but I am reluctant to hit this button live because it's not showing. There it is.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
You put it in the wrong spot. You put it in the background.
Well, that's where I always put my images. Where do you put them?
You should put them in the overlay.
Foreground?
Yeah, you should put them in the overlay.
No, it's just two different people running their platforms. It's like, all right, Ains puts them over here. I put them differently. Oh, that's right. I see Paddington.
If you go to the website,
that's right. It's a Paddington. Get excited, people!
A Paddington cameo.
Like if you guys go to you can screen share and scroll through the website, right? Because the website has all these images of like the characters and the levels, and I don't know, man. I think I like it when things look different and have like their own flavor, and this does not. I like that it doesn't look like Odyssey, because then they would just be aping Odyssey.
It doesn't have to look. It doesn't have to look like Odyssey. Thank you, Travis. I'm not going to let that one go without a comment. It doesn't have to look like Odyssey. It just doesn't have to look like something that offends my eyeballs.
I want it to offend me a little bit.
Okay, that's fine. And by the way, I looked up this particular character that I was trying to put on the screen for you all and failing at, and you will be very excited to hear that this Void Co character is named Void Kong.
Void Kong. That's
very creative.
That's cool.
They're very
I don't think
creative.
they said that, but yeah, he looks like a gremlin, as seen in the movie Gremlins.
Yes, he does. But yeah, I'm pumped for this one. I think it was a great direct. I think this is, I hope we get the same type of direct for Metroid Prime 4, right? Like, I think this format of 15 to 20 minutes of really explaining the world, the details, the characters, the mechanics, I think really works. So I like to.
I hope Samus is
direct.
Also seen with her tongue hanging outside of her mouth cartoonishly as much as Donkey Kong.
That's between you and Date Everything, Travis.
That really is.
Did you see the
you guys remember how old were you guys when you saw, like, found out that Samus was a woman?
I don't know,
like
8?
6.
Nice.
8, yeah, something like that. Yeah,
same here.
Definitely single digits.
Was anybody else like, oh,
no?
Listen. No? What do you mean, Hogue?
Have you seen Samus in freaking Metroid 1? It's a little pixel person.
Yeah, it's a little pixel thing. All you saw was a couple pixels of hair. That was
my first Metroid game was Super Metroid. It took me a while to die, but when I did die, and then she goes like, oh, and you see like her silhouette, and you're like, oh. You guys,
by the way,
just me?
I've never reacted to Metroid this way.
Shout out to Super Metroid, by the way. Legendary game. One of the best.
Super Metroid. Yeah, that was my first Metroid game. That actually, I think, was my first Metroidvania type game. I might have played Castlevania.
Metroid was my first Metroidvania.
well, Super Metroid is one of the progenitors of Metroidvania. Castlevania in general is not. Symphony of the Night is where Castlevania picks up the Vania part of that.
The Vania
part. The one I played, I just remember running through a hallway and killing wolves that were jumping through the windows. That's really all I remember about Castlevania. Whatever one that was, that was my first one.
I think it's all of them. I don't know what to tell you there. I don't know that that's not Symphony of the Night, but it doesn't sound like it.
I don't think it was. I think it was an earlier one. I like the Castlevania games, though.
Castlevania is great.
They were pretty hard.
More importantly, can we talk about something else I'm mad at Travis about? I think
that's my favorite topic.
And Hogue will recall this is, a good 3, 4, 5 weeks ago, I happened to mention to Travis that a new Nintendo of America store had opened in San Francisco. And he was excited about it. He told me that, he might go by there tomorrow, I think was the official quote. Yes. And I said, by the way, they have a new Donkey Kong plush, a really cool looking official Nintendo Donkey Kong plush. And that whatever you had to do to get one to send to me, including money or whatever, sex favors, what it may be, I'm happy to do that. And yet I sit here weeks later without any follow-up on this Donkey Kong plush assignment.
I honestly, I'll be honest with you, Ains. I was waiting for the sex favors first. I was really no, the actual truth is that I forgot.
That's a good story.
I forgot to do that. I forgot. I sent that text, and whenever you send a text and you think to yourself like, I'll remember that, no need to write it down, and then you forget it as soon as the text is out. Like,
I do that every day
immediately, and I was like, this is the first time I have thought of it since I sent that text. As soon as you said, I was like, oh God, I completely forgot about that.
Yeah, I think you took orders because I think I said anything Pikmin or anything Animal Crossing would be welcome in Hogue House.
You know
I think that was my response.
Real talk. I'm going to go today, and I'm writing.
I was going to say, I figured you and D would have already done that. It's probably pretty cool, right? I'd love to check it out.
Well, we went for the Switch 2 launch, but we ended up moving to a Best Buy because the line was just too crazy. Although that was the store where that guy smashed it with the hammer right after he got it. Did you guys see that video? Some guy smashed his Switch 2 with the hammer right in front of it, and he's now not allowed to go to the Nintendo of America San Francisco store anymore. He's banned. It was very odd, but yeah.
Content creators.
Joe,
man.
Mr. Badbit says, no joke, Ains. I'm going to New York City in 2 weeks. I'm probably going to go to the Nintendo store. I have a backup, Travis. You're on notice.
Yeah, you have a backup. I'm going to go today. I still have not been to the San Francisco. I've not been inside. I was just in front of it for the Switch 2 launch. So I still have not been inside. And it's like, what, one of 2 stores in the United States?
Yeah, there's only a couple. That's what I mean.
I need to go. I'm going to go today.
All right. If they have a Donkey Kong and they have a Diddy as well, I've seen pictures of. If they have a
Diddy,
I'll send your money today.
Do you have a P Diddy amiibo?
I don't want to tell you what that amiibo does when you touch it to your Switch. It's
what
not
good. Yeah. Okay, so you're looking for a Diddy amiibo and a plushie.
No. Plush. I don't care about
both
amiibo.
plushes. Okay.
Yeah, I don't care about amiibo.
Okay,
especially not
at
at $40 or whatever the hell they are.
And then for Hogue, I'm looking for anything Pikmin related.
Well, that's exclusive to the store. The Pikmin and the Animal Crossing stuff is what my girls highlighted for me, but it's like all random stuff, so it doesn't make sense to itemize.
If I get you something, you have to tell your girls that it's
from Uncle Travis.
Uncle Travis. That's
okay.
Right. I'm a great uncle. Let me tell you. I'm like, I don't know if I've talked about this. Here's a little lore dump. I'm like 6 times. I'm like, no, not 6. I'm like 10 times an uncle. I have
Travis,
a bunch of siblings.
They already straight up like you more than me.
My uncle.
It's okay.
Yeah. Awesome.
You
well,
you don't make them do their grammar homework. So you're already like
right,
six steps ahead.
Yeah. I'm a great uncle because like when they're young, we have all the same interests. They like dinosaurs and cartoons, and I'm like the coolest adult they've ever met because I'm like, yeah, dude, I work in the games industry. I just play games all the time. And they're like, dude, this guy's awesome. And then as soon as like 7 or 8, when they learn about music, I immediately become the least cool person in the world. I go from like the coolest guy ever to like he sucks as soon as they learn about music. So yeah, I've developed a niche as an uncle for when I'm cool. Yeah.
Nice.
I assure you that if we were to receive random Pikmin or Animal Crossing goods, I would inform them that they came from Uncle Travis in San Francisco.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I'm pumped. I saw a picture of it. I think someone got it from Epic Universe, the Mario World location. There was this amazing Donkey Kong plush, and I saw it and I was like, oh my God, I need that. So I'm hoping the Nintendo store has it.
I just like terminology jokes, so I want to give credit to X Music here. I'm a great uncle because my niece had a baby.
Nice.
That's good stuff. There were a couple other things I was going to mention. We talked at length at Cast Co-op on the channel earlier this week about AMD and Xbox. So this is just them just doubling down on their partnership for the future. You know, all this really means is you're going to get a Series X successor that is going to be however powerful it's going to be. It'll play all your Series X and games that work on the Series X and S today. Backwards compatibility will move forward. They already said they were doing that. That's not news. But I think this is just good to see that there's still at least a commitment. I think there's a lot of questions about Xbox's commitment to hardware. I can tell you directly after speaking to members of the hardware team, they are making another console. It is coming. This was just letting people know we're going to be where you want to play, whether you care or not. I mean,
yeah, I mean, I think
Xbox dead. They're getting out of the market.
I think this is what we've talked about before. This is them breaking down the generation walls a little bit. They're moving to an iPhone model where essentially some of their systems will drop off of compatibility lists. And that's what I expect from them in the future, which is not the same way that Nintendo's and PlayStations have been sold for a long time. So it'll be interesting to see.
Planned obsolescence? Is that what that is?
It's no, planned obsolescence is a different concept, but people use terminology all over the internet in ways that it was not intended.
Planned obsolescence is like your iPhone intentionally running out of, or its battery getting worse in 5 years because they want you to buy a phone in 5 years.
Well, and specifically having like the system drain more and doing various things that are not terribly great.
They
So
would never
would you
do
describe Xbox's strategy as unplanned obsolescence?
No, I would describe it as something like a fluid ecosystem. Like Generations is just the wrong concept for what they would like to move towards.
The word is ecosystem, 100%. I did talk because, this is something I do play in quite often and talk to people about. I talked at length about this on Cast Co-op, so I would recommend checking that out. That's our other show that Joe, Luke, and I do. Used to be bi-weekly. It's now about once every 2.5 months. But we talked a lot about that this past Thursday, if you want to know more about that plan. But yeah, I mean, the good news is, as we've said, Xbox isn't going for the console race winner. What they're doing is they want you in their ecosystem, regardless of where you're playing. And their plan is Game Pass. And now they're focusing on Play Anywhere more with third parties, which means kind of like in other spaces, they want you just playing in their ecosystem, even if you're playing third party games.
Yeah, they want to drag that recurring revenue off the software top, which is what the rest of their business focuses around. So, yes, the reason they're pulling out of the hardware war, if it makes you feel better, PlayStation fans, is because they done lost. And they are acknowledging that, but they aren't leaving the investment space of gaming, which is good for everybody. And you can feel great about it if you're a PlayStation fan, that you beat back evil Microsoft. But it's still going to be around playing games, even if they don't line up entirely with the generations anymore.
You beat back evil Microsoft so that evil Sony could win. They're all evil guys.
Well, the worst part is that it's evil, incompetent Sony right now. We'd like to see some competence from all sides of the fight here.
I want my evil to be so competent, there's no way I could combat it.
We want the evil to be competent enough to fight each other so that the overall evil that we have to experience in our lives is mitigated.
Yeah, that's
you guys remember that time Google's motto was "Don't be evil," and then they abandoned that motto?
Yes. We did not just become born yesterday.
Isn't that fun? Good times.
I think the important thing here, so I know we're running long, so I didn't want to stay on this one too long, but the biggest announcement that I think people are missing here, and I may do a separate video or something on it, is you started to see this Xbox PC branding with the Asus ROG Ally announcement at the showcase. And if you think about where they're going next, right, is a console that is open to third-party game platforms. And if you're in that ecosystem and you can play, they have an Xbox operating system where you can play on any device. What that does is it builds upon the power of Windows 11 being freaking everywhere, right? But it allows you to play in the Xbox ecosystem while also having access to things like Steam or Epic or Rockstar or those other launchers. And that's where things get really interesting, because now you're talking about a future where you can buy an Xbox console, play on an Xbox operating system, and have access to things like Steam. And let's not forget that PlayStation games launch on Steam. So we've talked about this a little bit in the past, but it's I think the next few years of this evolution is going to be really interesting to watch unfold, because the walls that we've known for our lifetimes in gaming are disappearing really quickly.
Yeah, no, it's a new world.
Yeah.
Could Sony say my games are playable on Steam, but only on certain devices?
So yes, Steam allows for you to be able to detect what they're playing on, but Valve overall has an incentive to not allow you to start hitting switches that change the functionality of their platform. So I've talked about this in other places before. Sony could. Sony has all sorts of reasons not to, not the least of which is it wants its money to be available in various places as well. But I really think the important player there is Valve, that doesn't want to highlight the bifurcation of what is their unified platform, the reason that people like Steam. That's their moneymaker.
We've kind of already done it though, right? Steam Deck can't play all of their games, so you have to. They've already.
Steam Deck has other reasons to not play their games, right? Steam Deck uses a different operating system. Sony has already built their games to function on Windows, so they would have to actually actively hit a switch that says if you detect it's on a Xbox, then you're not going to play. And outside of that, having all sorts of ramifications for regulatory and antitrust environments and things like that, it's just not something Valve would like. So my guess is that Valve is the power that says, no, this isn't going to make sense. And that Sony ultimately comes out and says, we are not in the business of taking the games away from you just because you're playing on an Xbox. So we're not going to do that. Like there will be a statement that says we're not going to.
And there will eventually be a PlayStation launcher on PC. PlayStation's going to want to bring theirs internal, I think.
Yeah, that makes sense. Possibly. Steam's still too big.
My guess is that Sony's response to these walls coming down, that I think Sony does not have a interest in those walls coming down, is that they simply institutionalize the idea that these platforms get it at like a year late, right? 6 months to a year late, probably.
It's possible. So, it depends on how much they need the money.
I think exclusive timing is the new exclusive, right? It kind of has been for a while, but like the idea that if you play it on PlayStation, you get it in 2016, and if you play it on PC, you get it in 2017. I think that's sort of the new model. And then on Xbox's side, the new exclusive for them is you don't have to buy the game because you just pay Game Pass. And so that's kind of an interesting, like, competitive question. You pay a premium, get it earlier, or you play it on Game Pass and you don't pay at all. And it'll be interesting to see where people end up in that ecosystem.
I think the aspect of this which is being overlooked is the Xbox operating system. I think turning Xbox into an operating system that can function on any Windows 11 device and not just a console or PC is important because it opens up the handheld market. That's what you saw with the ROG Ally. But most importantly, as we just said, it's built on Windows. And when you play on Windows, you have access to all your launchers, right? And so you start to open up those storefronts to an operating system that looks and feels like a console, but has access to everything else. Let's not forget Steam's launching their own operating system too, or Valve is, right? And let's not forget that Valve also tried to get into the console space years ago with the Steam box and failed, right? And so I think this is what you're seeing is Microsoft finally piecing everything together in their tech stack, which they have the distinct advantage in because there's really only a handful of companies in the world that have that tech stack capability. Sony is not one of them. And
no, Nintendo, it's what Microsoft does. It's the truth.
Yeah. And Nintendo is way over there, right? So
I feel fortunate that Nintendo games run. Like they're excellent designers, but like technologically, I'm happy that it works.
It works, yeah. But I think these next couple of years, you're going to see Microsoft, right, flex into that power space, not power from a performance perspective, but power in a global perspective to say, here's our tech stack. You can't compete with it. They already don't compete with it. They already have a better ecosystem design-wise, right, than the others. But they're going to flex that even more. And I think it's going to be really interesting to watch them fold.
Yeah, it's what they do with their billions and trillions of dollars. And I understand why people sometimes get scared about that because it is very difficult to imagine anybody fighting it. So we'll see what happens. But in terms of hardware under the TV, PlayStation's the clear winner. You can declare victory. It just doesn't matter probably for what you thought victory would be in the next generation and beyond.
Exactly. Yeah, and they've been saying that, right? But and both can, again, we've talked about this a lot here, but both can succeed, right? Like both can still continue to be successful. They're just very different models, so that's fine. I'll own them all, as always. Circling back, the last thing I was going to close on, which is frustrating, though I don't think surprising, is that Beat Saber, of all games, one of the most famous or maybe the most famous virtual reality game, right, over the past several years, is pulling back support for PS4 and PS5 versions of their game, which is frustrating for me personally. Like I said, probably not surprising, but I think it's definitely indicative of a bigger problem of PSVR 2, which we've talked again a bit on this channel about. So
I have I want to point something out here, which is
please.
I don't know if we have enough data to know that the reason this is happening is because of the PSVR 2's lack of sales or players. Like what we do know is that that Beat Saber is at the top of their VR games like every month, right? We know that like Beat Saber is like the most sold game on the PlayStation platform.
Yeah.
We don't know how big that is and if it makes sense to port it over to PlayStation because the player base is, I assume, like smaller, obviously. But the other kind of fly in the ointment here is that Beat Saber is owned by Meta, and that Meta has a vested interest in kind of the exclusivity. That is also talk about walls coming down. The VR space is actually doing the opposite. where everything is becoming more gated as some of these companies consolidate and try to grab more share of the market by having exclusive experiences. And Meta has been the main buyer in this market of grabbing things and making it exclusive to their platform. And so there's that question of like, is this a move to just make the Quest 3 a more premium platform? Because if you're playing on PlayStation, they're still going to have it on PlayStation, but you're not going to get the updates and DLC packs and ongoing support. That said, the Beat Saber community is hella I don't know what to call it, black markety. they love their hacks and their questionably legal or illegal kind of mods to the game that add a bunch of music. And so I'm kind of theorizing that this isn't really going to matter because the PlayStation headset, people are going to find ways to play games. They already do find ways to download 1,000 songs that are not officially sanctioned by the Beat Saber game. And so I don't know that this is going to impact those players that much. People aren't playing Beat Saber most, at least my experience with it in that community is they're not playing it with the officially sanctioned DLCs primarily. They're playing it with like the mods and the custom songs, and none of that.
Well, I need to look into that because
I don't know what you're talking about. I just play with the League of Legends K-pop songs. That's all I play Beat Saber with.
Yeah. Ains, if you want, I went through an extremely elaborate process of figuring this out, so I can help you with it if you want. But honestly, that was the best thing I've done for my headset, is because now I have one that's modded and one that's unmodded, and the modded one has a lot of stuff on it, and it's
that
really
sounds like I should be covering my ears.
He sits these headsets next to his 7 Series S's, Hogue.
Yeah. Well, that one's different because remember they sent me a headset for the Asgard's Wrath 2 review. So, yeah.
Well, we just saw it is real, right? I don't even know if it's announced or whatever, but it's leaked the Xbox branded Meta Quest 3S. So,
which I actually think is, I think that's the path that Xbox should have taken when it comes to VR a long time ago. Like, don't do it yourself.
They said that and then never did anything.
Yeah, don't do it yourself. You failed at making your own accessories. Don't get into that market. Focus on consoles and PC, but like partner with somebody who does it and just have it available for your audience. So
that's what they said they were going to do, but
honestly, it kind of feels like at this point that one of those big players are the only people that could beat Meta, because even Steam is having a hard time. Like, I would figure Steam would be the main player in this, and it's like kind of no contest. Like, Meta's walking away with this market. And I don't know. I don't have the same incredible hatred for the Meta Corporation as a lot of people do, but I am not a fan of any consolidation in that space. And Meta is they're just destroying. I mean, they have the best headset, so some of it is earned, but I would love if there were some serious competition in that space, and it feels like increasingly that's not happening.
They do have the best headset. The Quest solved the issue with VR, and other people thought it was power, and it's not power. It's that kind of freedom.
Correct. Yeah. They went from, their big problem was games, right? They had like the best tech, but their games were just a bunch of goofy games they were getting by with. And now that there's another 10 out of 10 game that isn't Half-Life Alyx on the VR, I think they're well positioned, incredibly well positioned.
Sorry, I was responding to a comment. Yeah, completely agree. So I just thought that was interesting news this week. But regardless, let's go ahead and wrap it up, boys. As always, these guys joked with me ahead of time. I said, "Look, we don't have much to talk about today. It'll probably be a short show." And here we sit, over 2.5 hours. So
that's just how much we love you all, chat.
Sorry, boys. Yeah, it's good conversation though. Good conversation. So, chat, you've been awesome as always. I think on the SG side of the house, our Mind's Eye review is up, in case you're wondering, the formal review. Now, Don, we didn't get into it this week, but Don, who reviewed it for us, said it's not as bad as some people are saying. He liked pieces of it, and so you can check that out if you want to, of course. And then we have fresh previews going up this week of Pragmata, Capcom's game that they showed off at Summer Game Fest, as well as Lego Party, which I talked about last week a little bit, and the fun to go with that. And we'll probably have a few other things as well.
Ains,
yes.
Do you have plans for Death Stranding 2?
Not currently. No, I don't think so.
Do you need
Yes.
plans?
Wait,
should I write up a few thousand words?
If you would like to be a guest reviewer, please do. Yeah,
I am super excited about Death Stranding 2.
We just saw the extent of vetting in season gaming right now, which is, you want to write it, go for it. Look at that. Look at that, guys. You see that?
Yeah, you want to write it, go for it. That's what we do. Do it.
Wait,
doesn't mean
Ains,
it'll get published.
Ains,
but...
are you pitching all of the stuff for your site right now?
He's gonna do the thing from Kingdom Come. Just hang on.
Ains, you forgot to show me your wares.
Show me your wares.
No.
I'm already done. So
you got to be nice to Ains. Sometimes he's tired. It's the end of the show. He's been hosting this whole time.
I swear that would be the easiest one to turn into a segment, because he could hit a button and it could just play that clip. Show me.
You just got to give him the clip. I'm sure he'll make it a segment.
I'll pull the clip. I'll do it. I'll record it today.
Yeah, that'll be easy.
That's big talk.
We'll put it in here.
I want to see the clip, Travis.
Ains, it's easy to just play a video if you upload it, right? And it does audio and all that. Okay, yeah. I'll
Load goat.
A simple yes would have sufficed.
I will record Henry saying, "Show me your wares," and I will send you the clip.
We'll have it next week.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Fantastic.
I like that we only hit the buttons after the 2.5 hour mark. It's when we lose our minds.
Yeah,
pretty much. And by the way, I know that's loud. Yeah, see, someone just said, "God damn, that was loud." I'm sorry. I realize it's loud for our listeners.
It doesn't sound loud to me, but yeah.
I think it comes through, like if you're just watching this on a TV or listening to it, I think it comes through really loud when that slap comes down.
There's never any warning.
Our audience away.
Anyway, let me pass it over to Hogue, because I saw you had an extra video up this week, my friend.
I did. I will show you your wares. Yes. I had a virtual legality.
You're going to show him his wares?
I don't know. I'm doing my best at
Maybe he's
speaking
selling
English.
clothing and he's spelling wares WEARS.
Whoever's wares they are, I'm happy to talk about them. I did a virtual legality episode this week about Nintendo's terms of service, which became kind of a hot button issue around various parts of the games industry a couple of weeks ago, primarily. And
a hot button issue, as everyone knows. Everybody's talking about the terms of service.
GameSpot had a headline article that said, "Your Switch 2, you don't own it." And it's like, come on, people, let's start talking about legal terms a little bit less egregiously in games journalism in general. So I did a video on it. We can talk about that if you'd like. Leave your comments on how I'm too much of a Nintendo fanboy, or I've never read a user agreement before. Whatever you like to share with me about your thoughts on my profession, please leave it in the comments to my virtual legality episode this week. You can also catch me in various places at Last Stand Media this coming week. So I'm out there. I'm doing work. I'm also practicing law. That's a little bit less public, but
why?
Having a good time.
Record it. Put it on Instagram. I'll watch it.
You know, as it turns out, there are certain things that are not wise to record and put on Instagram.
I disagree.
I don't want my clients to lose attorney-client privilege.
I don't like that both of my co-hosts think that legal documents saying you shouldn't share information are viable. I think we need to get past this idea. It's ridiculous.
No, actually, I break for
We're trying to put on a show, people.
I break NDA all the time, and just not with you specifically. You're the problem.
All right, Hogue. By the way, I forgot to circle back real quick, Travis, on the poll. Can and will Bungie salvage Marathon into a successful long-term project?
So I'm very excited to see what everybody else voted.
Well, only 16% said yes. 46% no, and another near 40% said I sincerely and genuinely don't care. So I would essentially they're indifferent.
You gave them a don't care option. Who decides to vote in a poll and just answer don't care?
You would be surprised.
38% of our audience.
What? No, I want to know the exact thought process that leads you to, I should answer this poll with don't care.
I've also found by doing the polls on IGN.com that if you put a joke or a kind of I don't know how to describe it, kind of like just a one that is intentionally going against the grain answer, people will
Yeah.
pick that overwhelmingly. Just
A punchline answer. You have to know that you're going to destroy your poll when you do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a
course.
very bad habit of doing that because Dan Stapleton will be like, the polls are supposed to be like legitimate things that would spark a conversation in the comments, and I'm like, they should be jokes. Apparently, is what that's my strategy. Apparently, cool.
What you got,
Say it.
Travis? Show me your wares.
Excellent. I'm so glad you asked, Ains. Yeah, so my wares this week are my final review of Dune Awakening, which I played for 200 hours. I got deep into that game. You can watch it on YouTube or on IGN.com. You can read the written version, which is substantially longer. I gave it an 8 out of 10, in case you're curious, which means it's great. And I said that in spite of the fact that its endgame's pretty malformed at the moment, and that it has other problems that you can read in my review. And then I also did a guide if you're playing Dune Awakening for how to find all the trainers and unlock all the skill trees, so you can check that out if you care. And then I did 2 previews of Borderlands 4. The first one is my first preview that kind of kicks off my initial thoughts, and the second one is unedited gameplay of me running a vault and doing a boss fight with my VO coming up over the top to give thoughts at certain points. So that's like a 20-minute video or something like that.
So it's not your game chat. It's not your usual tirades or slurs or anything like that.
Yeah, no, it's none of my slurs. I kept those for the party chat. And then I'm also doing a Q&A, I think on Monday. I can't remember when I'm doing it. I'm recording a Q&A where we're just going to answer all your questions about Borderlands 4. And so you can join me for that. I believe we'll be recording it live, or maybe they're providing the questions in advance. I don't know, man. I don't plan this stuff. I just show up and talk. So that's what I'm going to be doing. So look out for that later this week. As for upcoming content, I'm not on a review right now, so we'll see. We'll see what I do. I don't know, man. I'm wild. I'm feeling
not on a review right now.
I know, it's surprising. I was supposed to be on Data Everything, but now I've got kind of a gap, and I'm enjoying it because I'm catching up on my backlog. And boy, do I have a backlog. I'm gonna start South of Midnight today. That'll be fun.
That won't take you too long, I don't think.
Yeah.
No, I'm excited by that. Please, shorter games would be great. Also, Blueprints. God, my backlog is insane. All right,
a lot of games. A lot of games. All right, chat. You've been amazing hanging out with us, guys. It's been a fun one today. Thank you, as always. As we always say, enjoy the amazing games out there. We will obviously be back next Sunday with more to talk about. In the meantime, I'm getting ready to go see 28 Years Later here. And
that's an Ains movie for sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I've been waiting for that one for a
giant pile of skeleton heads. I was like, yeah, Ains will love this.
Oh yeah. Day 1. Well, day 3. So anyway, have a great Sunday. Have a great week. Enjoy your games. Thank you as always for all the support, and we will see you next week. Till then.